Welcome back, soldiers of the Chinese army, to the Dragonspotting podcast. A podcast where we watch movies with dragons in them and then tell you about it. I'm Diana, pronouns they, Annie.
I'm Heather. My pronouns are she and they. And let's get down to business, Diana, to record a podcast. Because what are we talking about today?
This week, we are talking about the Disney movie Mulan from 1998, their original animated movie. And this movie, I think, is another pretty good one that we're getting under our belt.
I agree.
Yeah. We had a lot of fun with this movie, I think. Although, something to note really early on is that, you know, this is a movie that got brought up a lot when we were talking to our friends about movies with dragons in them. And Heather, I gotta say, the dragon in this movie is very disappointing.
Yeah, honestly, we're gonna get to this, but we've had better dragons, to be sure.
We've had better dragons, for sure. Before we get into talking about the dragon, though, we'll do a little bit of background info about the movie, as we often do. And
let's get some background info in here.
Information.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I had a little bit of trouble doing some of the research on this because most of the articles that I tried to check out were paywalled. So we're doing things a little bit different. I'm not going to go into as much detail as we have for the past couple of episodes. That being said, we did watch a DVD copy of this, and through that, I was able to watch an audio commentary of the movie. And so, rather than kind of front-loading every single piece of information, a lot of that is going to be spread throughout, kind of as it is paced in the audio commentary. So we're going to make up for it, and it's going to be all good.
It's gonna be fine. Don't even worry about it.
I'm not worried about it. I never worry about anything. What?
Yeah. Honestly, our audience is probably relieved after the last episode. Like, oh, thank God. These bitches don't have as much to say this time.
They're gonna shut up. I think it's fairly well known at this point that the origins of Mulan are as a Chinese epic poem called The Ballad of Mulan, and I have a little bit of background info on it here because I didn't know too much about it. I've never read the original poem, and I still have not. I did not have time to find it, and that is on me this time. This,
I never read the novel that inspired Quest for Camelot, so I don't think we're upending any kind of precedent here. So I think you're good.
That's fair. I always just, when you see that it's an epic poem, I'm like, oh, okay, so it's short, so I could have theoretically found it and read it on time, but it's all good.
I don't know. I think of the word short when I think of epic poem, because isn't the Odyssey an epic poem? And that shit's long. Maybe not for you, Diana, but I think for most people.
Well, in the article that I found, which is called The Controversial Origins of the Story Behind Mulan by Soo-Yun Haynes, which was originally published on September 4th of 2020, updated on September 11th of 2020 in Time Magazine's, online publication, it says that the poem is short, explicitly. So I probably could have read it. The earliest printed version of the story is in an anthology from the 12th century. Again, the poem is called The Ballad of Mulan, and it has possible origins as a folktale from the 4th or 5th century, and we can date this due to references to the Northern Wei dynasty, which was from the 4th century to the early 6th century. The story follows familiar beats that we know from the movie. A father is called to battle. Mulan decides to go in his place. In the original poem, it doesn't explicitly say she goes because he is old or infirm, but instead just that he didn't have any adult sons who could have gone in his place instead. She goes, right, and after...
So, yeah. I was going to say, so the implication is there.
No.
It's because... I was going to say, the implication being that if he had a younger son, that younger son would have gone in his place.
No, he had no sons who would have been viable to go. So Mulan goes instead.
I meant, like, the implication being that if Mulan was a son, it would have been expected that she go.
Yeah, so after 12 years, Mulan returns and reveals she is a woman because no one figured it out during her time in the army. The poem concludes with these last 4 lines. The male hare wildly kicks its feet, the female hare has shifty eyes, but when a pair of hares run side by side, who can distinguish whether I am in fact male or female? So...
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's the last lines of the poem?
That's the last lines of the poem, according to this Time article that I read, and that's the translation that they gave. Oh. And the article quotes the Associate Professor Xiaomin Kwa, who is an East Asian languages and cultures and comparative literature professor at Bryn Mawr College, as saying that the version is about Mulan, quote-unquote, just getting the job done, and also points to the fact that the poem emphasizes gender as a major, like, part of it, right?
Okay,
and
so we're not off base for reading into it in that manner.
Correct. That's kind of the point that they're trying to get across here. And
okay.
They also then talk a bit about the ethnic origins of Mulan and how they have shifted over time, because the Northern Wei dynasty was established by a formerly nomadic group called the Tuoba. Don't come after me for mispronouncing that, I apologize. They conquered northern China and are ethnically Turkic or Mongolian, Proto-Mongolian, rather than native Chinese, quote-unquote, kind of at that point in history. Because, at this point, we're not going to argue about who is or isn't Chinese. I'm not opening that can of worms. This is just history, right?
Yeah, this is just history.
This is background information. The article also quotes Sanping Chen, who is an independent scholar and author of the book Multicultural China in the Early Middle Ages. So they're the one kind of talking at this point about their research on Mulan and the history. Chen claims that Mulan's name, if we're looking back at it as having Northern Wei origins, is not Chinese, and therefore her name does not mean Magnolia, because that's what it would be in Chinese, but instead is a masculine name that allowed her to pass in the army. And therefore the meaning of her name is lost in time, because the Tuoba language is gone. It's lost history.
Sorry, I'm just sitting here saying, like, okay a bunch, because, like, the gears in my head are turning and thinking real hard. Anyone's guess as to why, but... Some people get really mad when you read into Mulan as being, like, a story about, gender and having to do with gender at all. And it's really funny that, no, history and scholars disagree with you, actually. This story is gender as fuck, actually.
Yeah. And also, in saying that, I completely agree with you, and I think that historically there is evidence to support, no, this story has always been gender as fuck. This article was released in the 2020s, and...
Fair.
And also, like,
Fair statement.
These two people, their views on it are not gonna be the universal views, but also, all opinions on art are valid, I would say. Like, have your evidence support it, back it up, but, like...
Obviously, this single perspective is not the end-all, be-all interpretation of this story, but these are people who are much more learned and well-read on the context of the story and the history surrounding it, and this is what they're saying. So
Correct.
I'm going to just look at that as, no, okay, so I'm not entirely wrong.
We're getting a big thumbs up from scholars of certain fields. The article then also goes on to talk about some of the changes that were made to the poem over time, and this ultimately kind of leads to the thesis surrounding adaptational change, specifically from the cartoon to the live-action remake, both by Disney, and kind of saying, like, sure, we would like historical accuracy in certain things. There are some politically charged things that come up in this, but hey, this poem has been used for political purposes throughout time, including in its country of origin. Kinda get over yourself is some of what they're saying, because in the 16th century, there was a play that adapted the poem, and it specifically emphasized foot binding as part of their gender shit. The original poem speaks specifically about weaving, which is something that women did. That was not a man's task. That's what women did. And foot binding at this point in history was something that was very gendered. If you don't know what foot binding is, it's the practice of women, and in this case, specifically in Chinese culture, women would bind their feet so that they would remain small. They would curl their toes under and bind them, and so they wouldn't grow any bigger, and the toes would kind of grotesquely grow under the foot instead. It is something that is not very common today, to my understanding, and is also can be quite dangerous, unfortunately.
Yeah, and widely considered not a cool practice, from my understanding, in modern times.
Correct. But that was something that got added into the 16th century play, again, to emphasize that gap between women and men. And then in the 17th century, the poem is further dramatized, specifically through the inclusion of Mulan unaliving herself rather than living under foreign powers. And this is also when the article points to it as having, like, the beginnings of kind of a Chinese nationalism coming through for this story specifically. And then also that kind of continues to be a thing as films are made in the 20th century. I'm not touching it any more than that, but again, this is just kind of demonstrating the historical aspects of this poem and the adaptational changes that get made, and why it's okay that those changes are made. I'm not gonna sit here and pretend that every single thing that the very American Disney animation company did was perfectly cool and alright and didn't have a tinge of racism to it at times, but, like, their point is more that, like, hey, don't get your panties in a twist over this, it's okay. Let's talk a little bit about the production side from the Disney point of view.
Hell yeah, because, like, for the third time in a row, this is an animated film.
We're doing an animated movie, and we're also doing another Disney movie.
Yeah, and given the precedent we've set so far on those fronts, this is bound to be interesting, I'm sure.
It is less interesting than you want it to be because, again, I hit a lot of paywalls with this. That being said, I think I found the most interesting information because I imagine if I had gotten into a lot of the nitty-gritty production stuff, we would have heard the same old story of the animation team was under a lot of crunch and they had this, that, and the other happen to them. And it's like, okay, cool. Past a certain point, that stops being interesting. So I'm kind of glad that I don't have that info because then we can just skip right over it into things that I personally find much more interesting. And
just get into the meatiest bits.
And that's going to begin with the fact that Mulan was the first Walt Disney animation picture, specifically, that was not made primarily in Burbank.
Huh.
This information is in a couple of articles, but I'm pulling the next few bits specifically from the article titled Florida Animation Studio Comes of Age with Mulan, which was published originally in the South Florida Sun-Sentinel. No author that I saw. It was updated on March 24th of 2021, but just from the way that it's written, I presume that this was written far earlier, possibly back in the 90s when the movie was coming out.
I'm surprised it took them that long to make something that wasn't exclusively... When you say in Burbank, do you mean like in-house with Disney? Like, did they outsource this to like another animation studio, or was this just a different Disney studio in a different place helped with it?
It's a different Disney studio. It is specifically Orlando's Disney MGM Studios, their animation showcase.
Okay.
They originally signed 70 artists in 1989 to basically go hang out down there as part of, again, like an animation showcase. Like, they were kind of on display for people walking through Disney parks is kind of how they presented this. Or else it was more like
I do know about that.
Yeah.
It's like almost like a zoo of animators.
And the article
funny,
even,
but also a little strange.
Yeah, the article even mentions that they originally planned to be staffed with animatronics, but instead they sent people down there. And this turned out...
That's macabre in a very Disney way, actually.
But it turned out that this was helpful to them because over the years, this team contributed between 10 to 25 minutes of animation to projects headed by the Burbank studio. So when we say this was the first animated movie by Disney to be made outside of Burbank, what we mean is primarily. So Burbank is primarily handling the animation for all of the other 35, I believe, projects, because I think Mulan was the 36th feature film to be made by Walt Disney Productions, animated feature film. And prior to this, most of it is handled in Burbank, but then you have studios like the one in Orlando, and also they had one in Paris by this time, that are contributing small segments to it.
I see.
Mm-hmm. And it was the first movie produced primarily by this Florida studio, the first one outside of Burbank, and therefore this was their first time making a feature film. Before that, and we'll talk about this in another article a little bit, they had done, again, brief segments for other movies, and then they also made a couple of Roger Rabbit shorts, which is always very fun.
Oh, awesome.
I love me some Roger Rabbit, hell yeah.
We love that guy.
Yeah.
He loves his wife.
The article kind of points to the fact that Barry Cook, one of the directors, was more or less next in line to direct a movie, because that's kind of how Disney does stuff, is they keep it very in-house.
Yeah.
They have, an animator. In-house. They have an animator work their way up the ranks. Eventually you get to direct a movie. And he's actually on the commentary track that I listened to, and so he has a couple of moments where he talks about certain segments that he animated within Mulan. Like, he was like, I'm taking the direction on this, I'm gonna have fun with it, which I always love to hear. And then he lived in Florida, and so the studio is right there. It just seemed optimal to hand off everything to them, is how the article presents it. And by this time...
Kind of a just a opportunistic choice.
Yeah. And by this time, the studio had up to 400 animators in a 2,000 square foot 4-story animation building. And this article also gives us the number that they had a $90 million budget for Mulan.
In like 1990s dollars, that's a shitload of money.
It's a shitload of money, and
it's a shitload of money in today dollars.
Oh, absolutely.
Honestly, but
yeah,
like no, for an animation production at the time, that feels like a lot.
Yeah, and looking at this movie, I feel like we got a little bit spoiled by Spirited Away, because that movie is so intricate. And Mulan just comes across as very simplistic in design in comparison. And I mean that in a good way. And I guess maybe...
No, I know exactly what you mean. It's a different beast.
It's a completely different beast. It's a lot of matte paintings. It's a lot of just one or two characters moving across a scene. It's a gorgeous looking movie, right?
Yeah, it's a Disney movie.
It's a Disney movie. And it sounds like, from the next article that I'm going to talk to you about, a lot of that budget went into CGI sequences. So my buddy Jim Korkis is back from cartoonresearch.com. You might remember that name from when we talked about Pete's Dragon. He is here with the article Remembering Mulan from August 26th of 2022.
CG.
Yes.
I'm interested what that is, because I don't think I specifically thought anything like that. But who knows? I might just not have been thinking with my eyes and brain. Whatever that means. I just might have missed it, huh?
So, Korkis is coming at us as a primary source for this article. He definitely interviewed people, but it was like back in the day, because He worked at Walt Disney World's animation department of the Disney Institute and was therefore invited to the animation building to do like a tour of it while they were working on the movie, as well as an event for Walt Disney Studios cast members. So he's funny, like when he's introducing it, where he's like, these were the notes that I took when I was doing shit. So like, these are all in my own words. You might get conflicting information elsewhere, basically. And I was like, cool, thanks, bud. Before we get into that, though, a funny thing that I saw is that the article is front-loaded by a movie poster from 1998 and has these quotes on it.
Oh boy, here we go.
Audiences will want to jump and cheer. Mulan doesn't have a Cinderella complex. She actually saves the guy, ! That one's from Newsweek.
Oh, goodness gracious.
And then the second quote that they have on this poster that's selling the movie for us, Eddie Murphy as Mushu is hilarious, from Rolling Stone.
Thanks, Rolling Stone. Insightful commentary on the film.
Thumbs up. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
This article also refers to the studio as the Disney Feature Animation Florida Studio. That's specifically what it calls it. So that just might be like a change in what the name was from when it was first started. It also says that the movie, against its $90 million budget, made $120 million domestic, as in the US and Canada, and a $304 million total worldwide. It was the second highest grossing family film of 1998 behind A Bug's Life, because Disney's just raking in that cash.
Yeah. Disney was kind of uncontested for a good bit there.
Oh, yeah. They're still pretty high up there, but now it feels less.
Not so much in animation now. There's a lot of really good animation kind of directly competing with Disney nowadays.
Yeah, not animation. I mean more in like the family film, quote unquote, genre.
Oh, yeah, no, sure. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Like they don't feel as impactful because a lot of the stuff is like remakes, like the live action remakes that nobody likes but everyone goes to see anyway. So they feel less important, I feel like, but they're still, you know, monetary-wise, they're still the giants kind of
still
uncontested.
Disney.
It's still Disney, yeah.
They're still Disney.
Speaking of Disney, Mulan had more CGI usage in it than any Disney animated movie before it, and most of the CGI, and this is probably why you didn't notice it, is combined with 2D hand animation in order to kind of blend together seamlessly, and also because they wanted to get the CGI to kind of lend a certain effect to it without having it overshadow the hand-drawn animation, which I always like to see.
That's what it was. Yeah. No, they did a really good job of integrating it then, because, like, I mean, I noticed it in Spirited Away, but I didn't notice it here, so...
Yeah.
You know, props to the animators. They did their fucking job, if that's what they were intending to do.
Yeah. The specific kind of moments that they point out in the article are obviously, like, the Huns coming over the mountain. Most of that is CG enhanced.
Oh,
and then,
yeah, of course it would be, like, the horses and like the different angles on horses and such, maybe.
And then that big crowd, like, when they're outside of the Emperor's Palace... That is CGI enhanced.
Yeah, okay. Now, in retrospect, no, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
A couple of other things, like, they point out, like, candle flames were CGI enhanced. Some of the arrows were CGI enhanced. Like, stuff like that to make it pop out against the 2D animation and the map backgrounds. Like, this is a movie where they're using technology in a very, very smart way. And I like it.
Yeah, very smart, very well done. Just great execution on this movie and how it looks.
But that's kind of all the background info I have for you, at least outside of the audio commentary, which, again, I'm going to go over as we go through the movie. And hopefully that'll beef us up. Yeah, it'll beef us up when we're talking about this movie, because I think it's time that we discuss our secret notes, I guess, that we've taken on Mulan, and discuss our you know, all our thoughts and feelings and opinions and such.
Yeah. Let's get down to business to discuss Mulan.
This movie. And before we get too deep, I will just name drop. The audio commentary was done by 3 people, as opposed to if you watched our or listened to our episode on Aragon, we had one guy, director Stefan Fangmeyer, and
shout out
to that guy. We love you, Stefan.
Shout out to that guy for being so strange in his creative decision-making process.
It is so enlightening to experience a commentary from more than one person and also from 3 people who kind of know what they're doing a little bit more than this guy, it seems, because their dynamic is so much fun. These people know each other. They're so complimentary of each other. They're so complimentary of every single person who worked on the movie.
Oh,
and
awesome.
I apologize. There was a point where I just stopped taking down names because they just knew everybody and just kept name dropping everybody and their mother. And that's awesome. And they're giving so much credit. And
that's awesome.
If anything, I implore you, like, if you haven't had the opportunity to, track down a copy of the DVD or just a version of this that has the audio commentary with producer Pam Coates and directors Tony Bancroft and Barry Cook. They are so complimentary and knowledgeable and so in love with this movie that they made, and it's really lovely to hear them talk about this movie and also riff on some of the stuff that happens in it, and also tell you where they think they went wrong, which is really fun and interesting.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so we'll get to those points when we get to them. And, like, so we begin Mulan, my DVD starts, and we are treated to a very cool opening credits sequence that Tony Bancroft notes as his favorite part of the movie just right away. And
yeah, I can see why.
They name drop Hans Bacher as coming up with the look of this, and it is watercolor on rice paper that their artistic coordinator figured out how to animate using a series of mats to reveal the lines.
Wait a minute.
And also a bleed system.
Wait a minute. This was done non-digitally. This was done traditionally.
It might have been done traditionally, but then they animated it. Like they took.
Yeah, like, no, that's what I mean. I mean like the ink painting. Like, what am I saying? No shit. This was made in the 90s. Yeah. How did I not put that together? That's awesome.
Yeah. That's
so cool.
They drop a couple of really fucking cool details in the, like, again, these people are so knowledgeable. Like, the 2 directors were animators first, and then Pam Coates, who was the producer. I didn't look up any background information on her, but again, like, she's just very knowledgeable. You can tell that she was very hands-on in production. She talks about, like, going to China to do their research, because that's something that they talk about a little bit in the commentary. And she was it's very clear that she was there for a lot of it. And I don't think their dynamic would have been as compelling if she hadn't been. And, you know, like, assumptions can be made. Like, maybe these people all hate each other. I don't know. But just the way that they talk about things, it's very clear that they had a good time working on this movie and also are very knowledgeable of the ins and outs of their craft.
Yeah, they've got a rapport.
They got a good rapport. But yeah. So that's how we get our beautiful, like, opening title of Mulan, of that watercolor and rice paper look. It's fucking gorgeous. And that brings us into the opening shot of the movie proper, which is of the Great Wall of China. And we see a guy on the Great Wall of China, and he spots something that we don't see.
Not just a guy, a soldier.
A soldier.
Like, explicitly a soldier of the Chinese army.
Yes. And he spots something that we don't see, but he, panics and he runs up one of the towers and is pursued by a dark figure, a dark looming shape. And he lights a signal fire that then is lit all up and down the Great Wall. Like, you see it extending to the distance.
Wait. I was going to say, no, I remember this scene a bit differently, because he spots the guy. He spots someone coming up the wall. He runs to a tower.
Mm-hmm.
And out of that tower burst, like, more guys, but not Chinese soldiers. we find out later these are Huns, and he rushes back down the other way, and then suddenly he is face to face with their leader, who he identifies as Shan Yu.
Yeah. And also in this, he lights the signal fire.
Yeah, he lights the signal fire and says the very iconic line that everyone knows. Now all of China knows you're here.
Yes. And that is...
Yeah, which Shan Yu says, perfect.
Uh-huh. The signal fires are inspired by actual Chinese history because the Great Wall is so great and so long.
And so wall.
And so wall with it. It would have taken fucking forever to, like, send a guy to each next sentinel post to be like, hey, something's wrong. And so signal fires were used to communicate, and if one person lit a signal fire, that would kind of be done down the line to communicate messages and such.
Very smart. Very smart use of wall.
Yeah. Very funny detail from their research trip. They actually went to the Great Wall and were sitting on top of it, and they specifically said that the flags were inspired by the research trip because there was a point where they were all just, like, hanging out in the wall and they were just listening to the sound of flags and birds, like, flapping in,
awesome.
like, the flags flapping in the wind. The bird detail is specifically because at this point in the movie, the hawk, Shan Yu's hawk, like, swings down from the sky and lands, and one of them was being an asshole, and they were like, were there birds? And Barry Cook is like, yeah, there were birds.
There were
and
birds.
Then they move on.
Yeah, before we move on, though, I feel like we would be remiss to not talk about Shan Yu and his character design here, because goddamn, what a cool design.
He looks cool as hell.
Yeah, he looks, and I mean this in, like, obviously there is some, that you can say a lot about how, you know, people of Asian descent are depicted, especially in animation. But no, I mean this in a, like, positive manner when I say he looks, like, inhuman.
Yeah.
In a way that I think is very intentional of this kind of... He looks less like, you know, an invading general, a general of an army, and more like a dark force of nature. He's got, like, the black sclera, like, yellow irises. He's got, like, bird eyes, almost. Yeah. This huge, massive, imposing figure. Skin that's, like, almost gray. And just furs draped over his body. And he moves so fluidly. It's incredible. His entire character design just oozes this extreme, self-assured strength that you can't help but be intimidated by. And his voice, I don't know the voice actor off the top of my head, but great. Excellent voice for him.
I made sure to write down all of the voice actors just because...
Oh, thank you very much.
One, I want to... you know, do our best to give proper credit.
Yeah.
I think sometimes we've been a little bit remiss in the past couple of ones, and that's okay. We'll get better at it. But also because I wanted to make sure that I properly wrote down how things are spelled out, at least in English. Obviously, like, Chinese characters are different, but I just wanted to make sure that I was writing them down so I knew how to pronounce them when going through my notes. Shan Yu is voiced by Miguel Ferrer, who... I did not write down what his other credits are, but rest assured, he is fairly prolific, as are most of the cast involved in this. I should actually say all. Everybody who is who voices someone in this movie and is part of the main cast, you know them from somewhere else, even if you don't, like, know their names or faces.
Yeah.
You know, he does a great job. He also looks a little bit like Ruber from Quest for Camelot.
We did point that out, yeah.
Which is very funny because...
But like a different Ruber.
Like a different Ruber.
Like a different take on Ruber.
Ruber, but built different. Yeah. from this scene, we now transition into a scene with the Emperor of China, who does not get a name beyond the Emperor. He's just the Emperor.
Yeah, he's just the Emperor.
He's just the Emperor.
In this, yeah. I want to point out here, just before we get too into it, just departing from the other scene, the color, language in this movie is great, because they use almost like a monochrome palette. Not monochrome, but there's a very clear dominant color. On the Great Wall, it was a very dark blues contrasted with the stark orange of the fire and the gold of the flag. Mm-hmm. And here in the Imperial Palace, it's all gold and scarlet. It's immediately you feel the tone shift, or not the tone shift, but the sense of space shift.
Yeah, their use of color in this movie is truly astounding. It really makes the movie feel iconic in a lot of ways. And that's something that they talk about in the commentary as being very deliberate, as having iconic moments, which,
yeah,
as someone who is a writer and enjoyer of film and specifically of horror, that's something that I always think is so important when talking about horror, especially, is having iconography so that it latches onto your brain and makes you think about things and recognize things. And that's also very important in animation, just generally, I think.
Yeah. Some people I know criticize Disney, Disney's house style, for being samey a lot of the times. But no, genuinely, I think you could look at any frame from any Disney movie and 9 out of 10 times guess what it is, because even within their house style, they do a very good job of capturing that kind of iconic, that of having iconography distinct for each of their movies. Each movie does feel Disney, but it also feels like its own thing.
Yeah. They talk about influences in this movie, and let me get the specific one. Yes. They specifically base the movie's look on the Tang Dynasty, which they possibly incorrectly identify as what would be theoretically closest to when Mulan, the real person, would have existed, just by my understanding from what they talk about it. This, because of the other research that I did, is possibly faulty, especially since a lot of historians say that Mulan probably wasn't a real person, and that it is a folk tale, again, kind of meant to speak on issues of gender. But that is where that look is coming from, is the Tang Dynasty. And in this scene, we're at the Emperor's Palace for the first time. The Emperor is voiced by Pat Morita, who you would know as Mr. Miyagi from The Karate Kid. I did not know that. And he is talking to two characters. He is talking to General Lee, voiced by James Shigeta, and his advisor,
Chifu, right? Chifu?
Yes, Chifu, who is voiced by James Hong. Again, both prolific voice actors and actors in other things. And they are
definitely heard James Hong in a few different movies.
Yeah, and the commentary specifically kind of pokes fun at themselves for having two leaders of China, the Emperor and the General, be portrayed by Japanese actors. And that's something that I noticed when looking at the cast list for this. It's not all Chinese or Chinese American actors. It's just kind of generally East Asian American actors. Someone else can have a discussion on that. I'm not going to. Sorry.
I don't think I'm qualified to make any kind of statement on that, other than they probably could have found Chinese actors.
They could have done it, and we see it done in other projects nowadays, more or less.
Yeah.
And that's what we're going to say about it. But yeah, they're having a conversation about the Han invading China and the Emperor asking General Lee to go to the front lines.
And also send out, a conscription to, build up their army, of course, because, all the people, or I should say, all the men are obligated to, fight for the Emperor, a man from each family.
Mm-hmm. And the specific line that the Emperor drops is, how 1 grain of rice can tip the scale of the war. Basically, 1 man or person can make a difference, which is a great lead-in to our scene that introduces Mulan as she is eating rice while taking notes on her arm in order to pass her, basically a bride test from a matchmaker in town.
She's seeing the matchmaker who is going to determine, and arrange a marriage for her, essentially.
Yeah.
There's... The bit of taking notes on the arm is very funny because she is doing it with a calligraphy brush. And then the rooster outside her window crows and she realizes, oh shit, I'm late for school. And by school, I mean my matchmaker appointment. I gotta fucking go.
I gotta cook.
And she's gotta cook. And she jumps up and, rushes out the door calling for little brother, who... we learned very quickly is not a human boy who is her little brother. It's her dog. It's her dog. Very funny dog. Her dog who's very stupid and is going to help her with her chores.
Yeah. She ties a grain of rice to his back and then also a bone kind of dangling from a stick so that
not
he'll
a grain of rice, a stick. She ties a stick to his back. Or no, not a grain of rice, sorry. She ties a bag of, feed to his back.
Did I say bag of rice?
You said a grain of rice.
Oh, yeah.
I got really confused for a second. Yeah, she ties a bag of feed to his back, and a bone, on the end of a stick as well, and just kind of sends him out the door, barking and yapping and snapping at that bone, and just dragging a trail of, feed behind him, which the chickens on her farm are going absolutely nuts for. And we get a shot following him up the hill to a shrine where Mulan's father is praying.
Yeah. Before we kind of go on, I would like to point out, this is again back when I was still kind of writing down names, so I'll shout out Chris Sanders, who was their head of story. He specifically is credited by this producer and the 2 directors as coming up with Mulan's intro to the movie and therefore her character.
Okay.
And he also is credited with naming the dog Little Brother, as well as the character design of Little Brother, as in they just straight up used his storyboard design as the final design for the dog because they're so charmed by it.
Yeah, and it's perfect. It's the perfect dog. If you ever watch Mulan and you look at this dog, you will say, that's the perfect dog. Because he is.
He also voices Little Brother because apparently he would just, walk through the halls of their building barking, and they were like, that's it. That's what Little Brother sounds like. You gotta bark into a microphone, dog. And I love that so much.
Awesome. That rules. I love that.
Yeah. They also then go on to discuss tone in the movie. And I want to bring this up now because they bring it up for the first time with the dad praying in the little shrine. I should
the ancestral shrine, I guess you would call it. Yeah. That is who he is praying to. He's praying to his family's ancestors.
Yes.
To please let today go well for Mulan. And his pleading only increases as Little Brother dashes around him, and the shrine is suddenly filled with chickens and corn.
Yeah. They talk about this where this movie kind of swings back and forth from being quite serious to then also being quite comic, and also then action-packed in a combination of the 2 tones. And
yeah,
they always wanted to balance that and kind of actually just go back and forth between them, because they didn't want the movie to get down in the dumps, but also they didn't want it to be so comedic that you forget the more serious aspects of it.
I think they did a great job on this, and we're definitely going to talk about this when we get to a specific scene much later on.
Oh, yeah. I also took note of the tone shift kind of early on, because as someone who's a little bit obsessed with the Disney Renaissance, I just find it to be really, really interesting in a lot of ways. There are quite a few Disney Renaissance movies that really fail at this tone shift. I specifically think of the movies Hercules and Hunchback of Notre Dame, where the tonal dissonance of those movies adds to the movie, I think, because you kind of can't take certain moments seriously in those movies. Like, yeah. I love both of those movies equally. They are not successful in a lot of ways. Mulan is successful in its tone shifts, I would argue.
I'd agree. I'm inclined to agree, actually, thinking about both those movies.
Yeah. So, now that we've met Mulan's dad, who the movie refers to as Fa Zhu, but I'm probably going to quote-unquote mispronounce as Fa Zhu, or Fa Zhu at some points, because my understanding is that's closer to how it's actually pronounced. But whatever. Now that we've met him, we meet other members of Mulan's family. This, of course, being her mother and her delightful grandmother, who are out at the market buying Mulan a lucky cricket. And this character, the cricket, is named Cricky.
Well, hang on. Sorry, I had muted my mic because I was moving something. I will point out, her mother is waiting outside the bathhouse because she had scheduled Mulan to be, washed and done up for the matchmaker hours ago.
Yeah.
The grandmother is going around buying Lucky Charms.
The grandmother is fucking around in the most delightful way possible. And to prove that this cricket that she just bought is lucky, she covers her eyes and walks directly into traffic. And causes
a bunch of rickshaws and animals. Because it's not a time of cars.
She causes a highway pileup, but comes out completely unscathed, and she says, this proves that the cricket is lucky. And
this one's a lucky one.
This is a lucky one. And this is where I noticed an interesting animation thing, and kind of then was paying attention to it throughout the next sequence, which is that the grandmother's feet are cricket feet. She's the only character in the movie to have these big, long, thin feet that just kind of stick out as she walks around. And this is also in direct contrast to the rest of the women in the movie, who, for the most part, and specifically in this moment, when Mulan comes to the bathhouse and the song, I think called Bring Honor to Us All, starts up.
Yeah.
For the most part, the women's feet are covered up by their floor-length skirts, and you only see, the suggestion of movement beneath their skirts. It's very demure and subtle. Yeah. Whereas later, when Mulan gets dressed up in men's garb, and, all of a sudden her legs are just kind of out on display, and it's very different than walking cycle that she has. As well as the fact that the grandmother has a little bit of a shorter skirt, and also these big, long cricket feet, which connects her to this creature and separates her from the other women in the movie and kind of marks her as possibly having different expectations for Mulan than her mother specifically would have.
She does, also kind of distinguish herself from the more traditional aspects of Mulan and her family almost immediately, because when the mom says, "Oh, I can't believe Mulan is late. I knew I should have prayed to the ancestors for luck today," the grandma just kind of slides in and goes, "Well, how lucky can they be? They're dead."
I love her.
It kind of an immediate irreverence compared to how Mulan's parents regard them, which I think, establishes a lot for the grandma's character straight away. It's her first line in the movie.
Yeah. I love a grandma character who just fucks around and doesn't play by the rules. That's my personal weakness.
We love old people who don't give a shit.
We love them. But who does give a shit is, of course, Mulan's mother, who is voiced by... Let me get this. Fa Li is voiced by Frida Foshan, and Grandmother Fa is voiced by June Foray, who... My notes on her are just... Holy shit, she's prolific as a voice actor.
Oh, yeah?
Just, when you get the chance, look up this woman who lived to be 100 years old. June Foray.
Cow.
She did shit. She did lots of shit. Do you
have any examples off the cuff?
The only reason I didn't write them down is because there were too many to count.
Damn.
It's...
Okay.
No, we could sit here all day listing how many things you would recognize her from. Oh, the big one that I saw is that she voiced multiple characters in Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Oh, multiple. Oh,
Yeah.
Like that prolific.
She's that kind of voice actress.
She's like, she might have been voicing characters who, like, were in fucking, like, pre-Disney cartoons.
Possibly,
like
she was born in 1917 and passed away in 2017. So, like,
God damn.
yeah, so
like
she...
a full century, huh?
Yeah, she lived and she did work. Go her. But yeah, those are our two other principal female characters, I would say. And now we are fully into Bring Honor to Us All, the song sequence where Mulan is prepped and beautied up for the matchmaker.
Yeah, and this song is an interesting, I think, like, clash of ideals here. Or not, it's not so much clash, but
it offers contrast.
I want to compliment the... Yeah, I was going to say, I want to compliment the animation because it does a very good job of, establishing Mulan's character further, because this entire song is about, doing your family proud by conforming to traditional gender roles. And throughout this entire song, Mulan is, like, physically uncomfortable by everything that's being done to her.
Yeah.
Like, she's too cold in the bath when they tie the sash around her waist to, like, compress it. She, like, visibly, like, flinches. Her notes get washed off in the tub, and her mom's like, were you going to cheat on your matchmaking?
Yeah.
Mulan, come on. The grandma has, like, a fun little moment for her where she gives her, like, the good luck charms and a bit of encouragement out the door.
Yeah. Yeah, just to point out before it kind of gets washed away. What? Before we kind of pass the moment by, they mention that the writing on her arm is the principles of being a good wife or daughter. They don't fully remember, but that's what she has written on her arm.
I'm not well versed in my Eastern philosophy. Is that Confucius? Like, I feel like that's
possibly something that they talk about in the commentary later on, and when we get to, I'm not going to look for it in my notes right now, but when we get to it, I can restate it so that it's more accurate to what they were saying. But they point out that when they were looking at, like, their material for the Ballad of Mulan, it is specifically endorsing the 5 tenets of Confucianism, or whatever that would be. Confucianism.
Yeah, because I was going to say Confucius is all about, like, roles and relationships and hierarchies, from my recollection of the brief bits of him I've studied. Sorry, I feel like I'm coming off as very girl who has seen Boss Baby once right now.
No, you're all good. We're doing our best. But yeah.
We're doing our best.
They do, now I'm remembering, like, what specifically they said, because they talk about this when we get to the ancestors, that the Ballad of Mulan was written prior to Buddhism being introduced to China and Chinese culture at large. So when we're talking about specifically the religious aspect of the movie, this is pre-Buddhism. So your deities that you're talking about are ancestors. They had ancestor worship. And then Confucianism, which is not so much about deities, but it has a spiritual aspect of it, just in terms of, like, how you're meant to live your life. And it would make sense that what she has written on her arm is from Confucius specifically. Yeah.
And speaking of, doing what you need to do, and how to live, the song lyrics, there's a line as Mulan joins the procession to the matchmaker after she's, all done up and prepared for it. There's a line, I don't remember the lead into it, but it basically says, like, to bring honor to your family, like, there's things that, like, must be done. The men, by waging war, the girls by bearing sons.
Yeah.
Like, it is not subtle about what this movie is saying.
Yeah.
In this song.
But Heather, remember, the
that
movie
is the one thing women do.
But remember, Heather, this movie is not about gender, actually. According to some asshole.
It's not about gender.
Yeah.
It's not about gender, and you're making it political, actually. You're making this movie about war and patriarchy political, actually.
Yeah, how dare you think that art is political when that's, like, the definition of politics, but whatever. La la. La 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 la. We're at the matchmaker!
We're at the matchmaker. Yeah. Where the procession finally reaches the matchmaker, and the song crescendos, and they all, like, drop down into, like, onto one knee with their, like, parasols out, and the matchmaker bursts out just this like, loud, large woman. It, like, immediately just goes... I mentioned that she is loud and large explicitly because it contrasts so heavily with how all these girls are depicted.
Yeah.
It's, like, she's very distinct in her design.
Yeah.
She comes out, and she goes, and she calls for Fa Mulan. Mulan, so excited and ready to do well, stands up and announces that she is present, and loses points instantly for speaking without permission.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring up that she is distinct from these girls who are, like, prepped and ready to be seen as marriageable, because that's definitely something that you often see in a lot of different media, is that women who are placed in the role of determining whether or not a girl is in quote-unquote woman enough is herself often in a position where she is not displaying, like, the values that are considered womanly in a way, like being, or, like, not even womanly, just, like, not desirable womanly qualities.
How's the saying go? Coaches don't play?
Yeah, I guess. But yeah, she is markedly, like you said, she's larger, which is not seen as, like, a desirable quality, which fucking sucks.
They explicitly mention a tiny waist as a good quality for women in this song.
Yeah.
So I think it's quite purposeful that the matchmaker does not have one of those.
Yeah, she's, like, busty and hot with it. She's cool as... I love the matchmaker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and...
I got very defensive right away, but, like, about this, but I want to establish here. No, I don't think being large and loud are negative traits for women. I think they are at worst neutral traits for women.
Yeah, exactly.
The reason I made the point of clarifying is because we live in a society, and I think we're all aware of how that society treats people of certain body types.
Yeah, exactly. Tony Bancroft actually agrees with you that he likes the matchmaker. Again, he's a seasoned animator, one of the directors, and he, like, insisted on being the person who animated a specific part of this next scene. It's specifically when the cricket jumps down her bosom and makes her run around.
Oh.
But
okay.
he just really loved her design and thought she was fun, and so he wanted to animate her, and it took him 4 months to animate his scene, and he loved it. He enjoyed it so much.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about the lead up to that scene?
Yes, of course. Yeah, so Mulan goes into the matchmaker's house and is asked to recite, like, certain principles of being a good wife. Mulan reads them off of her wrist. They are a little messed up from her bath, and so she messes up, but is able to recover. And so things are going fine until she is asked to pour the matchmaker some tea. In grabbing Mulan's wrist in order to pull her further inside the house, the matchmaker gets some ink on her hand and, like...
Not just pull her further inside the house. Mulan is, like, using her fan as she's, like to appear, like, you know, demure and womanly while she's reciting this principle. and glancing down at her wrist. The matchmaker grabs her by the wrist, pulls her forward, and flips her fan around because she thinks Mulan is cheating by writing on the back of her fan. It's a very quick moment, but I noticed it, and it's very fun.
Yeah. But joke's on her because the ink was on her wrist, which is now on her hand, and she, like, smears it on her face in the arrangement of, like, kind of a mustache goatee situation.
Yeah, a goatee as she is talking about, you know, existing with dignity as a woman.
Yeah, existing with dignity as a woman. Because this movie, for better or for worse, is doing, like, cross-dressing trope shit. And, yeah, but Mulan is distracted by the fact that the teacher has, or matchmaker has ink on her face. And so she's, like, fucking up pouring the tea. And once
pouring it on the table,
she finally gets in the cup, but then notices that, Cricky has escaped his confines and is taking a bath in the teacup.
He's big chillin'. He's big chillin' in that tea.
He's enjoying his little jacuzzi, which, no, the matchmaker has taken into her hands and is now about to take a sip. And Mulan grabs it from her before she's able to do so. Which
he tries really hard to politely take the tea back, but the matchmaker is not having any of that shit. And they get into a tug of war, and oops, Mulan just spilled tea all over the woman who's responsible for arranging her future.
Yeah. And in doing this, Cricky is now down in her bosoms. He's having a party down there. And the matchmaker starts freaking out because, yeah, I would too. I have a bug in me now. I don't like that. And
there's bugs in me.
Hijinks ensue. She sits down on a brazier filled with hot coals. Her ass is literally on fire now, and she's running around. We cut to...
I want to say...
Yeah.
I want to say before we move on from this part, I can see why this took 4 months. Because there is so much motion in this, and not just motion, they're animating like her butt being on fire, and they're also animating smoke, and the smoke in this movie is animated in a very distinct style.
Yeah.
It's like made to resemble, you know, traditional Chinese like painting, and how smoke and cloud has like that kind of almost swirling pattern to it.
Oh yeah, it's cool as hell.
So it's really cool, and the way it trails throughout the room as she is like running around in a panic, yelling, "Put it out," over and over.
We cut to outside for a brief second where Mulan's mom and grandma are standing, and the grandma is like, "I think it's going well," as you could hear very obvious sounds of distress coming from inside the house.
Yeah, don't you? Don't you think it's going well?
And eventually the matchmaker bursts from the house, ass still on fire, and Mulan tosses a pot of tea over top of her to put out the flames, and this ruins the matchmaker's makeup. She looks livid. And poor Mulan...
she's so pissed.
She's so pissed. Poor Mulan goes to her mom and grandma for comfort. The matchmaker storms out and is like, "You will never bring honor to your family. And
you will never be a bride. You will never bring honor to your family. I'm gonna kill you. Give me $200. Like, that's basically what happens.
That's basically what happens. A couple of notes from the commentary track on this scene as a whole.
Oh. Yeah. So, wait, sorry, before you get into those, I want to issue a correction. She doesn't say, "You'll never be a bride." She says, "You may look like a bride." And I think that's important for, like, the themes of this movie.
I agree.
About saying something about presentation.
What?
And performance.
Gender.
Ooh. All right, now proceed.
Proceeding. The bride test is not historically accurate. Like, they say that right out front. They're like, this is not something that would happen in the exact way that we see it happening. However, it is shorthand to demonstrate how Mulan fails at being a woman in the way that this movie is setting up how you're supposed to be a woman. And I think it is a good thing to mention shit like that in the context of making art. shit doesn't have to be accurate 100% of the time, but sometimes you make sacrifices in order to get your point across succinctly and like the best way to get stuff across is what I'm trying to say. So
yeah, like, everything in a story is intentional, or at the very least it should be if you're good at writing one.
Correct. When the matchmaker bursts out of her house, Barry Cook has the comment, "Hey, there's some funny stuff in this scene," which I was delighted by.
I agree, Barry Cook.
Just very, very funny commentary some of the time from these guys. And then Tony Bancroft came in with the comment, "The worse the matchmaker looked by the end of the scene, the more dishonor upon Mulan's family."
Yeah, that tracks too. Fuck. These guys are funny.
These guys are fun.
Funny with it.
And then that's a good lead-in to the next scene in this, which begins with Pam Coates' favorite shot of the movie, which is just Mulan coming in through the gate to her family's kind of garden area, leading her horse, Khan. But her favorite shot is just that moment of Mulan, like, coming in through the gate, looking around, like, looking all sad. That's just, like, her favorite shot in the movie. And I love it when people kind of point out these small moments as being their favorite thing, you know?
I really like that particular scene, because when she comes in, she meets her father's gaze for, like, a second, and the father gives her, like, a little encouraging smile, because obviously he has not yet heard how badly the day went for her, and she can't even look at him. She, like, hides her face in shame, and the animation is so subtle, but you can see how it breaks his heart, and it's great. Like, we were talking about, you know, comparing this movie with, you know, Spirited Away in terms of, like, its animation, but I think this is, like, where the very minimal animation really works and it really shines, of just this small moment where there's not a lot of motion, but every bit of motion carries so much weight and emotion to it.
Yeah. Disney, on the whole, is very good, I think, at conveying emotion through their characters' faces and the very subtle ways that they move and act. This small scene of her kind of passing by her father leads into yet another, as if this is our second song. It leads into the second song. Fucking iconic. Yeah. This is Reflection.
Hi, this hit me very different now, rewatching this as a transgender woman. It made me cry.
Yeah. This was actually the first song written for the movie by songwriters Matthew Wilder and David Zippel. This is the movie's I Want song, but it's something that they talked about, how they kind of struggled with that formula of what does the character quote unquote want, because ultimately it's to bring honor to her family and specifically, like, have her dad be proud of her, but that's not really what the song is about. It's more about, it's explicitly about her wondering why her face does not match who she is on the inside, which and who is she on the inside, really? And who is she? Yeah, great fucking song.
Yeah, it's almost not, like, you can almost interpret it not as about being, why doesn't my reflection match who I am, but genuinely a longing for your reflection to make clear to you who you are, because you don't know.
And also to make clear to other people who you are.
Yeah.
And
yeah, it's, if I can just talk about this for a moment, about why this, like, emotionally affected me, and why I think this is a good opportunity to say, why do so many, like, trans people latch on to this movie and to Mulan specifically as a character? It's because of this shit.
Yeah.
It's because of that longing, that desire to be seen and understood in a way that the world does not seem capable of or even willing to attempt. And that kind of feeling of, like, just sad, lonely desperation that can come with that. And I want to make a point of saying, like, now, because I say this in our commentary track, but I want to say it here as well. Like, if you have ever felt this way, and if you are struggling with this sort of thing, believe me when I say it gets better.
Yeah. When I was figuring out my gender shit a few years back, I'm not even kidding when I say, like, I listened to this song so many times, and just, like, that thing of, like, I will never pass, and I was like, why does that hit me? Why does...
She literally says, I will never pass as, like... She literally says, like, I will never pass as a woman. Like, verbatim.
Yeah.
Like, explicitly. People who say this movie isn't at least somewhat about gender are stupid and wrong.
On a lighter note, Heather.
On a lighter note. This song is beautiful. But on a lighter note.
The song is beautiful. On another note. I just combined those two words. It was great.
Yeah, on a buter note.
On a buter note. We spot a dragon.
Oh, yeah.
At the 12 minute, 30 second mark, thereabouts. Yeah. We see the dragon.
Spot him. Granted. He's not animated yet.
No.
Yeah, granted he's not animated yet, but he's present.
He's present.
Diana, do we have a name for this handsome dragon, or do we want to wait to reveal that when the characters do in universe?
I think we wait to reveal what this character's name. But he's hanging out.
Fair.
He's hanging out in the background of this beautiful shot of Mulan, like, walking along, like, the pond, looking at herself, and it's this. And it's this gorgeous, lovely moment that, like, makes me tear up every time. But also, for our purposes, the dragon is lurking in the background, and that makes the scene a little bit funny to me now.
I will say he might have been visible in an earlier scene that we didn't point out at the time, because, like I said, spoiler alert, this dragon is currently inanimate, but will be animate soon.
Yes.
That's forthcoming.
After reflection, we have a brief scene of Mulan and her dad together under a weeping cherry blossom tree, which that's a recurring visual motif in the movie, is this beautiful tree in their garden.
It's gorgeous.
I love this tree. And
I love nature.
They're sitting here together, and it's basically her dad, like, reassuring her that she's going to find her place and that he loves her and is proud of her.
Yeah.
But there's also this...
Oh, I was going to say, there's the very sweet, like, metaphor he uses where, like, he sees that she's sad, and instead of, like, prodding, he just kind of very passively remarks on the beauty of the tree in bloom. But then he says, oh, but look, this one is late. Like, this blossom is late, but I'm sure when it does bloom, it will be the most beautiful one of all.
Yeah. And the commentary points out they originally had this scene take place as they were walking through town, specifically so that you could see, like, conscription signs on buildings. And then he like, finds a flower or, like, a tree, like, in town and points out to it. Basically, the content of what is being said is unchanged. They just change the placement of where the characters are when they're having this conversation. Which
I like this change.
I like this change a lot too.
It feels much more personal, much more like
Mm-hmm. I also think it then stands in contrast to the next couple of scenes that we get, where the army is now here, specifically Chifu is here, and he's calling on men in the village to be conscripted into the army. We see a couple of people get called out to join the army. The commentary points out the people's names who are being called are that of people who worked on the production of the movie, which is delightful.
That's fun.
It's fun.
As they're being called out, like, one person gets called and they step forward and they say, I'm ready to serve the emperor. The next family gets called out, and we see a very, like, a much older man, and who is clearly his son, because the scroll's offered to the older man, but the son puts like his hand on his father's, like in front of his father, and says, "I will serve the emperor in my father's place."
Mm-hmm.
Kind of establishing a setup of the dynamics here. And Mulan was trying to get a view on what was happening in the square, because, like the men were being called out, but the grandma very, very funnily, like, just kind of gestures over her shoulder to, like, a place Mulan can climb the wall to peer over.
Yeah.
Which is fun. And she gets up and peers over and sees the conscription being handed out, and then the Fa family is called. And we see at the gate her father kind of stand up straighter, because he's been walking with a cane throughout this movie, and Mulan has also been reminding him, like, to take his medicated, like, his medicinal tea for the doctor's orders. So her father is older, and he suffers from, like, some kind of injury or condition. But when he's called, he hands his cane to his wife and walks proudly and upright up to Chifu to receive his orders. And he says, "I am ready to fight for the emperor."
Mm-hmm. And then Mulan does try to get in his way and stop him and say, like, he is old, he is infirm, you can't go to war, that's a death sentence for you, basically. And he...
Yeah.
In contrast...
He pleads on his behalf.
Yes. And in contrast to the scene that we just saw, where he's like, I'm so proud of you, like, you can't ever dishonor me. He tells her kind of up front, like, right here, you are being dishonorable. I am going to war.
Yeah. In front of everyone, he says, "Mulan, you dishonor me."
Yeah.
And the tone of his voice, and he doesn't look at her as he's saying this, which, to me, like, not to make an excuse, so, like, horrible thing, like, to say, like, obviously, like, devastating, but this reads to me as a moment of, like, we're getting a view of how patriarchy affects, like, not just women, but, like, the expectations put on, men here, because this is not just a movie about women, it's a movie about gender. And I kind of get this sense here where we see his true feelings towards his daughter in the earlier scene, but here, just like how he put away his cane to walk out, and you can see, like, the limp in his gait as he is walking, to try and walk out and put on this front of being strong and in his prime and able to fight, he has to discipline his daughter in front of everyone, because she not only spoke when not spoken to, she spoke on his behalf against an order from the emperor.
Yeah.
And he has to call her out on that because he is obligated to do so as the head of his family.
Yeah. Again, talking about, like, the subtlety of animation, I think they really nail it here in terms of giving you the sense that this isn't necessarily something he wants to do, but something he has to do because of the culture that they're in.
Yeah, exactly. You can see, again, it's the same face he makes when he meets Mulan's gaze when she comes back from the matchmaker. It's the same, like, just, like, disappointment not in his daughter, but disappointment in, like, just the situation.
Yeah. He's resigned to it, I think is a good way of putting it.
He's resigned to it, and he is also, like, upset.
Yeah.
Like, that he has to be resigned to it.
Mm-hmm. They... Again, going back to the commentary track, something that they struggled with in terms of kind of making a decision on how to portray it is what Fa Zhu's disability was specifically going to be. And because they didn't want to make him so old and infirm that he wouldn't be able to walk up and accept the scroll and have the surrounding people kind of say, like, oh, we can't send this guy to war. But then they also wanted to make it so that, they specifically say this, so that the audience wouldn't be upset that he doesn't go after Mulan when she runs off to join the army. Like, they needed to have that be believable that he couldn't do that. And
yeah, that he couldn't catch up to her.
yeah, so they settled on kind of making him look definitively older, but not elderly. And then they also settled on this limp that I think worry that it's not coming across properly. And
if I can guess before you confirm, just to see if it came across properly, I read it as like a war injury.
I also read it as a war injury. They don't go into that, but I just feel like the way that they talk about it and continuously justify it, I think they still worried that we, the audience, either believed that he was too strong and should have been able to go after her, and or that he comes across as too weak. They also talk about like the difficulty of animating a limp and how sometimes it looks like there might be like a skipped frame. I think his walk cycle looks very, very good. I think he looks great.
Yeah. But I feel like this is definitely a case of them being too close to the source.
I think they're too close to the
really
source.
Give a solid assessment.
And I
know I've seen shit in my work where I'm like, did I do this right? It's awful. And everyone who looks at it's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. This looks fine.
Yeah. I will speak as somebody who has invisible disabilities and also a disability that makes it so that some days I'm fine. Like, I can go the entire day, I walk, I feel great, I feel fine, I can get my breath back easily, I'm not walking with pain. And there are other days where, like, I'll go on my daily walk and I have to turn back halfway through because pain is just lancing its way up from my knee and my hip, which I just have joint problems, like, that's where mine is coming from.
Yeah.
It might feel unbelievable to somebody who is somebody who's like able-bodied and doesn't have experience with friends with disabilities like that. As a disabled person, this is very believable to me that he would say, no, I can't leave my fucking house. My entire body is gonna freeze up if I go out for like 10 minutes without my stick. Like, you know, I think it just depends on your life experience, whether or not you're going to find this believable, I guess. But I also think that they're worried too much about it, and they might be overthinking it because they're artists and that's what we do.
It's very clearly a deliberate choice that he is not walking with his cane. Like it's very clearly a character thing and not a, like, oh, he's not really injured. No, because when he walks back after like, you know, admonishing Mulan and taking the conscription scroll anyways, he walks back and his wife goes to hand him back his cane and he refuses it. He just keeps walking.
Yeah.
But you can see the slight, you know, struggle in his gait. Or not slight, but like, he is very clearly trying to mask the fact that he is having trouble walking back. Like, just that short distance. It's very well done, in my opinion.
And even in the next scene, he goes to take out his armor and his sword, and he does a few moves with the sword, and he's able to get through. Yeah, he's able to get through the first couple of kind of moves in the sequence, but then
Mulan is hiding, like, around the corner, kind of watching him in awe.
Yeah. But that
awe turns to fear when...
Yeah, he kind of takes one step too far, it appears, and is suddenly in pain again and is not able to continue on. This leads into the next...
Falls over clutching his side.
Yeah. It looks like he has back pain, probably.
Yeah. Like, his side, which is kind of where I got the idea of war injury from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But this leads her to, when they're eating dinner together, her saying, once again, like, you can't go to war, you will die out there. And
not just you can't go to war, you shouldn't have to.
Yeah. But and this is something that, you know, we go back to honor, and it's something that the commentary makes a point of talking about as both a theme and also something that is very Eastern in origin, that he staying behind and not going to war and not serving his emperor in this way would be a dishonor to him specifically and his family in general.
Yeah. He says, it's an honor to fight for the emperor and my family. Mm-hmm. Mulan says, and so you're willing to die for honor? And he says, I'm willing to die for doing what's right.
Yeah. And...
like,
yeah.
I was going to say, just like, so, like, very clearly setting up their contrasting perspective on this decision and what's behind it.
Yeah.
Because Mulan is obviously framing this like through her lens of like, this is obligation because of, this is an obligation in the way that I am obligated to like appear as like a good and honorable wife. And I think that's like bullshit.
Yeah.
But he is seeing it as just the right thing to do regardless.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's actually something that the reason that they're hammering on this so much is specifically because when Mulan makes her decision to go in his place, excuse me, they want it to be clear that it's not just because she loves him and wants to protect him. She's doing this to honor him. This is, like, she thinks that it would actually be dishonorable for him to, like, go to war and die. Basically, like, it's more dishonorable for him to go to war as somebody who obviously cannot perform at the level that they need for him to fucking live through this. Yeah. It's almost as if she finds it dishonorable that they would ask him to go to war. And so she is going in his place in order to honor him. And I personally feel like the movie is getting this across. But that's also something that they very clearly were like, did we do this right? Guys, you made a good movie. You're good.
Yeah, I think they did well enough. And I think that's a perfectly fine lead-in to the scene that we've been building up to, where she makes her decision to take his place. We get one last shot of, I can't remember, is the shot of Mulan crying in like the statue in the rain? Was that was not in reflection? That's now, right?
No, we can do like a clean lead up to that, because after they argue, we see Mulan sitting on the statue of the dragon. She's curled up. And I love this pose that they've got her in. It feels so human. Like a lot of times the Disney princesses, because Mulan is officially part of the Disney princess brand, even if this movie wasn't really intending for her to be so. But
technically, I don't think she's ever a princess.
She's not ever a princess, but she is part of like the Disney princess brand. Like that is like the brand Disney princesses trademark. She's part of that now. But this movie allows her to be human first and a girl second, if that makes sense. Like, a lot of the Disney princesses, if they're having like a moment of trouble, like even Ariel, who up until this point is kind of the quirkiest Disney princess, I would say, even she has to do everything like gracefully, and she has to look cute when she's being quirky. And, when you're crying, you have to like throw yourself down and have your limbs kind of all akimbo and in such like a graceful way. Mulan is allowed to not be that. Like, she can curl up into a miserable ball and sit in the arms of the dragon.
Yeah, of this statue. Oh, what could this be? But she sees.
Yeah, this very cool shot.
I was going to say she sees, looks back at her house and she sees like the silhouette of her mother and father arguing, and her mother kind of distraught and leaving the room, and the father reaches for her but like holds back because what can he say? Yeah, the decision's made.
Yeah, I have in my notes that I love all of the cool shit that this movie gets away with, because the dad, like, blows out a candle, because it's in silhouette, because there's candlelight. He blows out the candle, and it fades into the matte painting background again, which I fucking love. Yeah. I love moments like that. But, yeah, Mulan, in this moment, makes her decision, and we got this sick fucking 90s electronic score that kicks in during this.
Synth. Ooh. It's so good. I'm a bitch who loves fucking a good synth song.
Yes.
This one's great. This is excellent. It's just this incredible, like, build as, like, I think Mulan catches her reflection like in either one of the polished ancestor stones, or in the water of both. Like the rain. But
Yeah.
like you see her resolve change and harden, and then we get this deep synthy like track as she walks through the halls of her home in this like unstoppable, unbreaking stride to her father's armory, where she looks at the armor, grabs the sword, and we see her draw the sword out, and we catch her reflection in it as it's being drawn, and she grabs her long hair in a fist and cuts it like all off. Well, most of it off, but like, and puts it up into, a top knot, and she puts on the armor, she sheathes the sword, and she goes to get her horse, who freaks out, like, at first, because he hardly recognizes herself. But she shushes him immediately, mounts up, and rides out the gate, as we then get this shot of, like, zooming into this stone-like edifice in the ancestor shrine of, like, this snarling dragon, and the eyes flash for a moment, and the grandmother wakes up in, like, a panic, and she runs into Mulan's parents' room and says, Mulan is gone. And her dad looks over where his conscription scroll was, and there instead is Mulan's comb.
Yeah. And
fucking fantastic scene. I'm sorry I took all of it, because once I started, I just couldn't stop talking about it. This scene is so incredible.
No worries.
There's no dialogue, no, like, lyrics to the song or the music. It's just sound.
Yeah. And I have some more commentary notes for it. So, one of the notes that they make on the execution of this scene is that every time Mulan makes a new decision in terms of how she is going to go about this, how she is preparing herself to go on this journey, there is a face watching her. So, like, she goes to the shrine, and the shrines are watching her as she, like, lights incense and prays.
She lights incense and prays. I forgot about that bit, but that's where she goes first.
Mm-hmm. So, and then, there's a cut of a face, and then she's in her parents' bedroom, taking the scroll and leaving her comb. There's another face as she opens the cabinet and takes out the armor. Her face in the sword as she takes it out and cuts her hair. So, like, that is a recurring thing, like a motif throughout this entire scene, hinting at the fact that the ancestors are watching her. And then also, that leads to then the face of both the dragon one last time and then her grandmother waking up, connecting her grandmother to the ancestors, because she's the one with the most spiritual connection.
Right.
And Barry Cook specifically says she's the closest to being an ancestor. And
I was about to say she's also the closest to being dead, probably.
Yep. The other note that they make is when Mulan takes the scroll and leaves her comb, that they got feedback from test audiences when they were doing some screenings for this, that this moment is really cold. To some people, it comes across as Mulan being very cold, and people were like, why didn't she kiss her parents? Why didn't she hug them? Why didn't she say, like, I love you before she left? And they, again, were kind of like, well, Chinese culture... Yeah, Chinese culture, like, you wouldn't do that. They're not as touchy as American cultures are. And also, I think this moment works very well just because, like, she's kind of... In that case, she's kind of holding herself back, because if she, touched them, if she said, I loved you, she could possibly talk herself into not leaving, actually. And I think it works on multiple levels in that sense.
Yeah. It's like she is telling them, she's almost sparing them the pain of a goodbye.
Yeah.
Of just, like, it explains in so many words. Like, her father understands instantly what's happened. Like, he understands everything that just went on while he was sleeping, because he immediately runs to his armory, realizes that the armor's gone, and, sprints as much as he is capable of doing out, like, his front gate before, like, just collapsing into the mud and rain, because he can't move that fast.
Yeah.
calling out her name into the night.
Yeah. It's such a hard moment to watch. And, the two women, go to him, and I think the grandmother specifically kind of begs the ancestors in this moment, like, please look after her. And as it turns out...
The mother says, well, hang on, before that, the mother implores him, like, you have to go after her. She could be killed. And Fazu basically says, it's too late. If I reveal her, she will be. Yeah. If I reveal that she has done this, they will kill her.
Yeah.
Like, not the enemy, the Chinese army. Like, what she is doing is taboo to the point of, like, illegality.
Yeah.
It is punishable by death.
Yeah. But yeah, and that's when the grandmother kind of implores the ancestors to please look after her. And it turns out this lady's got the ancestors in her back pocket, because they respond immediately.
Got them on dial. Shit turns on. The stones, all the characters engraved in the stones of the shrine kind of glow from the bottom like they're charging up. And then, like, they release this blue ethereal smoke that coalesces into some great designs of these spirits. Like, they move, like, incredibly. It's so fluid and light, but there is still, like, a weight to their presence.
Yeah. We get one ancestor first. We get first ancestor, who is voiced by George Takei. Because, and he appears, and in appearing, he summons another creature, and it's like this little lizard guy. He's kind of like a cross between a lizard and a dog, I would say. Voiced by Eddie Murphy, because this is Mushu.
Yeah, this is Mushu from Eddie Murphy. The like incense plate has, this kind of reptilian creature on it.
Yeah.
And he is excited to get to work, because apparently what he thinks his job is he is a guardian spirit who is being called upon to be sent out to do some gardening. Or guarding, whatever.
Okay.
But no, actually, he rings the gong to wake up the ancestors. That's his job.
He's
been demoted from his position as a guardian spirit.
Fun background detail. Tony Bancroft's twin brother, Tom Bancroft, is the main animator on Mushu. He makes the comment, "Our mother always said she's most proud of him," which I thought was funny.
Yeah.
They also point out, because Mushu at some point, like, jumps up to the top rung of the shrine, and there are a bunch of other small, like, creatures surrounding the top of it, and there's one, like, empty pedestal that he stands on. All of these animals are based on the Chinese zodiac, so I don't know which one Mushu would be. I can't think of them off the top of my head, but he's apparently one of them, but he's been demoted.
He's apparently one of them.
Yeah, he's been demoted.
Maybe Snake?
He might be the snake. He might be the dog. That's not true. He's the snake. But, he bangs the gong to summon all of the other ancestors. These designs of the ancestors, as you were saying, are so fun. They're so, like, diverse in terms of, like, all of their fun designs. You got one couple that's, like, a reference to the American Gothic painting, and I forget which one of the directors, but one of the directors voices the guy, which I think is very fun. There's a married couple who's arguing. They're apparently, like, married in real life. Delightful. And then one last kind of detail of the shrine itself. The Chinese calligraphy on all of the, like, tablets in the shrine. These are all of the writers who worked on the movie. That's what those words are.
Right, so we have all these ancestor spirits manifesting now. They've all been woken up by Mushu. And immediately they start arguing about whose side of the family is responsible for Mulan being like this registered trademark.
I am so charmed by the family. I think they're delightful. I think they're wonderful. I think they're a lot of fun.
Yeah. We start with an old lady, like, over the top being like, "I knew it! I knew she was a troublemaker!" And a guy being like, she gets that from your side of the family.
Be nice.
But they're very upset by this whole shenanigan that Mulan has set off.
Yeah.
And they start deliberating over what guardian can we send to unfuck this scenario.
And this is, again, where Mushu comes back in because they're directing him towards all of the other guardians that line the shrine and are pointing out different traits of theirs. And this leads to squabbling, which Mushu cuts off by saying, all right, you don't have to say anything else. I'll go. And all of the ancestors laugh at him.
Yeah, they do not respect this creature, reptile, snake, something. He's something. But something. Whatever he is, they don't respect him, and they don't believe he can do it. And they seem to have precedent for this, because the last ancestor he was responsible for, apparently his advice led him to disaster, and we cut to that ancestor holding his own severed head in his ghostly hands, saying, yeah, thanks a lot.
Yeah. So whatever Mushu was involved with last time obviously didn't pan out. Yeah.
But not only do you have to be fucking careful, you gotta be powerful, because what the first ancestor decrees is that the only spirit wise and powerful enough to protect Mulan and get the Fa family through this crisis is the Great Stone Dragon.
Yo.
Who is so large and imposing, he is positioned outside the shrine. And is this a Dragonspotted? I can't remember if we mentioned him earlier, but this is the statue that we've caught glimpses of.
Yes.
I think we specified, though, he wasn't animate yet. So I don't know. No. We were deliberating on whether or not he counted as a dragon yet. Because right now, he's just a statue until Mushu goes to ring his gong to wake him up.
Mushu goes with his gong to awaken the Great Stone Dragon. And Heather, this motherfucker is asleep. This guy's snoozing.
Yeah, dude is restful. Dude is resting up. He is asleep. He is an eaty boy. And Mushu is real pissed off about this whole endeavor. He's banging on the gong. He's saying hello, hello, hello-de-lo. Smacking him with the gong, hitting him with, like, the mallet. And he hits it so hard that the stone edifice starts to crumble away, and Mushu, like, freaks out. And it looks like the statue falls to pieces, so, like, obviously we get really concerned about this.
Yeah, of course.
But, I mean, lucky for us, we get a shot of First Ancestor calling out from the window, and he's like, Great Stone Dragon, are you awakened? And the Great Stone Dragon's head pops up from over the hill. It's a really weird decision, in my opinion, that, like, they never show his, like, full body in motion here.
Yeah, because spoilers, this is the last that we see of the Great Stone Dragon.
Yeah, it's really weird. They, like, introduce him, and he says, like, good morning, I'm the Great Stone Dragon. It's, like, it's a funny line, because, like, obviously you're the Great Stone Dragon, dog. Look at you.
Look at you.
Yeah, he says, I'm gonna go off and fetch Mulan. And the First Ancestor is like, great, go. We're all counting on you.
Yeah.
And, you know, there he goes. Off he goes. And we never see him again. I don't know if this was, like, a production thing where... Yeah. Like, this scene was animated already, and they just didn't take it out.
Yeah,
But, like, there's some theories that I can talk about later on about what happened here.
I didn't really get anything from the commentary track. Really, what they were actually talking about during this, for some reason, we're getting a lot of focus on Eddie Murphy. I guess because he kind of ends up going in the Great Stone Dragon's place, because...
Yeah, or, like, going after Mulan, I guess, to prove himself. And also, Eddie Murphy's such a huge name. Like,
he's such a huge name. They were extremely complimentary of him. They mentioned that he had lots of energy. He, like, really did his homework, like, just in terms of, like, learning about the movie. And he apparently recorded everything fast. Like, I forget if they said if he came down to the Florida studio or if he recorded his lines in Burbank, but they said like he arrived on set. Sometimes they would do like 1 or 2 takes, and that was it. Like he like did good work, and that's always good to hear.
He's got chops. You know what? Now that I'm like thinking about this, did he also voice the Great Stone Dragon? Because now that I'm like replaying this scene in my head, he sounds like really similar.
Yeah, it sounds like
I don't know. I don't think that he's credited as that. If that's the case, and that's interesting.
Yeah, that's it. Just sucks because like, you know, we talk about this movie to people and they're like, oh, Mulan has a dragon in it. Like, you have to do Mulan for the podcast. And he's only here for like a minute. I didn't even mark down like what time he came on screen was. I actually pulled it from earlier.
Yeah, it's really, I don't know. We're not gonna look this up like in post. Like he's barely there. This seems like unprecedented of like, oh, we're not gonna talk about the dragon. But yeah, no, like really, this is one of the first times I think that the dragon is just kind of there and gone.
Yeah. I mean,
you know, it's gonna make the rating like a little. I think it's gonna skew the rating, but I think there's when I get to talk about like the theory craft behind this scene that I did do a little bit of poking into.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
we'll talk about that. But yeah, for now, the Great Stone Dragon is off, and I guess Mushu decides that, you know, he thinks, well, I'll go to Mulan, and what he decides is, instead of bringing Mulan back, like, right away, which I guess is the Great Stone Dragon's plan, his idea is, well, if I help Mulan fight in the war and become a war hero, then they can't say shit to me. I'll have gone above and beyond my job description.
Yeah, well, I mean, I too would want to go against whatever the Great Stone Dragon's plan is, because he does park his ass directly onto Mushu. Like, you know, like after he finishes speaking to the ancestors, they like start running down a hill together, and then the Great Stone Dragon like dies or something. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like the stone remains of him or whatever. I guess he's like in a spirit form now or something.
Yeah, he fucks off to whoever knows where. Anyway,
it's a weird and inscrutable scene. Who knows what they were thinking?
Yeah. Anyway, in leaving the Foz like farm homestead area, he runs into the cricket, who the movie from now on refers to as Cricky as well as the commentary. So that's, I guess, what we'll call him from now on. But
yeah, it's Mushu's nickname for him, I guess.
It seems to be the name that they give him, like in the production as well.
Yeah.
But as they're heading out, Cricky apparently tells Mushu that he's a lucky cricket, and they start having like an old married couple dynamic where they're constantly bickering all the time. They run off to the war to help out Mulan. We catch up with Shan Yu, and the content of this scene is that he has come across 2 Chinese scouts, or possibly just soldiers who...
Imperial Scouts, I think one of his men refers to them as, because they're caught and brought before Shan Yu. He was like posted up on a tree with like a falcon. And...
Yeah, so he more or less tells them to take word back to the Imperial Army, the general, that they are on the warpath and they're coming through. Shan Yu's, they have caught 2 Imperial Scouts, as you said, and they are asking them, or they order them to bring a message back to the general that the Huns are on the move. And
this is where, this is where the conversation that I thought happened earlier in the movie happens, where one of the scouts says that the Emperor is going to stop you and your armies, and Shan Yu says, what are you talking about? He invited me and my armies. By building the Great Wall, he, spat in my face, he challenged my power, so I'm here to play his game, and you go tell him that. Tell him to send his strongest men.
Yeah.
I'll be waiting.
And in sending these 2 men off, he asks his other Hun boys.
His archer. His like archer. It's this scene is so cold. I love it.
Yeah. He really does. He kind of surveys the room and he's like, how many men does it take to take a message back? And his archer is like, 1, and presumably kills one of them with a bow and arrow.
I want to be very specific about the phrasing on this line because it's such a good double entendre. Because the exact phrasing of this is, how many Imperial scouts does it take to send a message? Implying that he's not just referring to, it only takes one of them to go tell the Emperor something. It's, I'm going to send a message by killing one of his scouts. Because there's 2 of them. It's great.
Yeah.
I love that moment. I love that line. Great bit. Really dark. This movie does, like, the dark moments really well. I think you were talking about that earlier with the commentary of how they were worried about balancing it. They do a great job. This moment is great.
That's what I have in my notes about this scene, that the sequences really help with that shift in tone that the movie goes for, where it's having that balancing act between being very dark and being quite comedic. And we are getting one of those comedic scenes next up, because now we are hanging out with Mulan again. And she is stanced up in her gear, and she is practicing her man walk and man talk. Her horse laughs at her. Khan the horse laughs at her.
Khan the horse.
Because she's not her ass is not passing right now. Her ass is not passing right now.
And that's okay. That's not everything. But right now, it's kind of necessary.
Yeah. The 2 pieces of background info I have for this are, 1, Mulan is apparently 16. I don't like that. Go home, you child. Oh my god. Holy shit. And also, remember how when we watched this movie together, we were making fun of how skinny the horse's legs are to the point where they look like they should collapse? That's apparently based on Tang Dynasty, like, art featuring horses. The horses look like that.
I figured it probably was, like, a deliberate aesthetic choice. I just couldn't place where that aesthetic came from. So it's nice to know it was, like, based on a traditional style.
Yeah.
I think for all the fun we poke at it, I think it does fit into the movie very well.
Oh no, it looks great. Also, the horse should collapse, and I think that's fun for both reasons. In getting ready to go into the camp, Mulan's prancing around and practicing is interrupted by a shadow on the wall.
Yeah.
And for a second, you might get excited thinking that the Great Stone Dragon has returned, except no, this shadow is much too skinny and sounds too much like Eddie Murphy, although I guess he also voiced the Great Stone Dragon, so maybe that's part of it.
Maybe they were going for a metaphorical thing here. I'm still not sure.
They're showing a dichotomy, maybe. But Mushu, it's Mushu who is this shadow. He's doing shadow work, buffing himself up and announcing, like, I'm here to help you. I'm here to make you a great warrior. Mulan gets excited for 2 seconds.
You're gonna fucking die without me, by the way. He does say that.
Yeah. Well, Mulan gets excited for about 2 seconds until she sees that he's just, like, a little lizard and not a dragon.
She identifies him as a lizard. And Mushu insists, like, I think he has, like, a complex going on that he's not a lizard because he doesn't do the tongue thing, but then he immediately does the tongue thing, so I think it's, like, a fun little wink to the audience about, like, oh, this is what his character is about. He's insecure about the fact that he's not a dragon.
Yeah, he's just a little guy. They apparently had 3 songs written for Mushu's intro that they were going back and forth on, And they ultimately decided that it would fuck up the pace of the movie too much, so they just decided not to have a song here and just go with a briefer sequence. And it was going to be his...
That's fascinating.
Yeah, the plan was for it to be like his I Am song, basically, but again, their exact words were like rejecting an organ transplant in terms of how it felt to kind of like take it out of the movie. So I thought that was interesting.
I see.
And now that Mushu is here and here to help out Mulan, he gives her some advice for going into camp. You know, square your shoulders, tuck your knees in. Basically, his advice makes her look like a fucking doof as she stances up and walks into this camp.
She looks like the way a child would make an action figure with very little articulation walk across their floor.
Yeah. A lot of fun. This movie is not afraid to make her look like an idiot, and I appreciate that. I think that's fun.
We appreciate an idiot protagonist.
Yeah, especially an idiot girl protagonist.
Not to say that Mulan is not greatly intelligent, just not at this. Just not at this.
I think I more mean, like, her physical aspect. They are not afraid to make her look kind of ugly sometimes and have her look foolish, like, physically. Yeah. Because that's, that kind of goes...
not graceful.
That goes back to my thing where she is technically a Disney princess by branding standards. Not necessarily when this movie came out, but still, up until a certain point, all of their female protagonists had to be a certain kind of beautiful and graceful, and even Ariel in The Little Mermaid, once she's kind of landlocked, she's kind of goofy with it, but she still is like a pretty princess who wears big dresses and is supposed to be kissed by the prince. They're not doing that with Mulan, and I appreciate that in a girl protagonist.
Yeah. We get I guess the word is butch. We get a more butch protagonist, which is fun.
Yeah. She walks into camp and is immediately astounded and disgusted by the ways of the men in the camp. But she is disgusted by these men, rightfully so. They're being obscenely gross. And she eventually finds her way into the, like, food line, where the men have lined up to receive their rations for the day. And she meets the three buffoons of the movie, I would call them.
These three stooges.
These three stooges.
I believe their names are Yao, Ling, and Shampoo.
Yes. They
awesome.
are...
Got it in one. They are a small, short guy, a very skinny guy, and a very tall, fat gentleman.
Yes.
It's in that order.
The one actor that I know from these three is Yao's voice actor, Harvey Fierstein, who is an icon of the queer community specifically. You will probably know him as the originator of the role for Tracy's mom in Hairspray on Broadway.
Oh.
Yeah. So Mrs. Turnblad herself is in this movie. He definitely would have done that role by this time, and it's one of those things where they didn't mention it in the commentary, but this is another one of those cases where I'm like, no, yeah, the gender shit is on purpose. Like, sure, like, Harvey Fierstein has, like, a very fun, growly, deep voice, but also, like, he played one of the most... He did one of the most famous drag performances of all time, basically, as far as culture is concerned. It's on purpose.
What an interesting decision that has nothing to do with anything with this movie, actually.
Absolutely nothing.
Absolutely not a goddamn thing.
But
as Mulan bumps into these gentlemen, Mushu gives her the fucking... the very good advice to just fucking punch him. Punch Yao, because that's how men say hello. And I think we're starting to see how that other ancestor got his head cut off, because this immediately causes a fucking fight to break out.
Yeah, chaos breaks out. It also demonstrates a little bit of these three characters who we are going to hang out with for the rest of the movie. Yao, when he is hit, is immediately fired up with rage. Qianpo acts as a peacekeeper, where he just kind of picks him up and gently rocks him back and forth. Yeah. Ling is just kind of fucking obnoxious, but is also here to pick fights and cause trouble.
He's an instigator.
He's in it for
the drama.
Yeah.
Qianpo attempts to, like, diffuse the situation, and Mulan gets the chance to walk away. Yao, as she's walking away, calls her a chicken, and Mushu immediately re-escalates by implying that Yao can't get hard because he calls him a limp noodle.
There are a lot of fun jokes in this. And of course...
And this starts the fight proper.
They try to throw punches at Mulan and end up hitting each other. They knock down the entire lunch line. All of the men are now involved in kicking each other's asses.
Classic bit, and we have, like, a fun little, like, chase scene. Comedic.
We haven't talked too much about Ming-Na Wen, who is the speaking voice of Mulan. She was more or less asked to be in the role, it sounds like, because they originally saw her in Joy Luck Club and were like, oh yeah, we want her in our movie, and specifically for the role of Mulan. Another thing that they mention in relation to this scene specifically is how Mulan physically moves throughout the movie. Whenever she is progressing towards her goal, she moves left to right. She is literally moving forward across the screen. And whenever she is in a place where she is, like, failing, she moves backwards. So she goes from right to left instead. And you see that demonstrated a little bit throughout this scene. I thought it was interesting because during the chase scene specifically, they are moving left to right. And I thought that was kind of fun, just in terms of, like, Mulan is finding her place in this, as clumsy as it may be. This is the start of a slightly different animation or art, like, design for Mulan's face. When she is paying, they make her face more angular, they give her thicker brows, and...
Oh.
Yeah, so if you look at her, because I started to notice this in the movie, when she is presenting as Mulan, her face is slightly fuller and more round, but you'll notice, and this will come up later, like, she has, like, a standoff moment where she is Mulan, and then she, like, pulls her hair back to show that she is also paying, and you see, like, the angles of her chin sharpen.
Yeah.
And I think that is fun.
I never noticed that.
This is just
That's
funny...
really cool.
It's very cool.
Yeah, as this chaos is happening, we move to a different part of the camp where order is happening, specifically military orders, because we have the general from the earlier scene with the Emperor, and Chi-Fu from the same scene sitting down with a new character, and this is Li Shang, I believe his full name is.
Yes.
And this, we learn through the discussion, is the general's son, who is being given the position of captain to be in charge of all of this entire, like, encampment of new recruits. And he is going to train them up as reserve troops while the general takes the Emperor's major forces to cut the Huns off at, I believe it is the Tongshao Pass.
Mm-hmm.
And Chi-Fu is kind of, like, chagrined at Shang's promotion. Because, like, to be fair to Chi-Fu, yeah, Shang is kind of having a Nepo baby moment here.
Yeah.
He's being given this position for family ties. The general even says as much. He says, yeah, my son's talented, he's capable, and he's got strong family ties. What? Who said that?
Who said that?
Yeah, but no, he gives him the position of captain, and Shang is adorable in this scene. He's so excited. It's very interesting to see him have this kind of almost like puppy dog moment here, where he's like having a, oh, gee whiz, Pop, I won't let you down. Oh, I'm so excited. Because as soon as he steps out of this tent, he immediately like transitions into an extremely hardened, badass like military mode. And I think that parallels, interestingly, with like Mulan. Which is why I'm establishing it here.
I do agree. The only thing I want to push back on is he does not immediately have that transformation, because his reaction to what the fuck is happening outside the tent is, oh no.
Oh yeah, no, that's true, because they do walk out of the tent. Like, they walk out of the tent ahead of him, and Shang stays behind to kind of relish in his new position for a minute. He's like, oh, Captain Li Shang, oh, captain of the greatest soldiers in China. No, the greatest soldiers of all time. And he steps out and he sees like fucking chickens everywhere, rice being spilled, men in a just sweaty pile beating the ever-loving tar out of each other. Yeah. And
they're fucking shit up out there.
Yeah. The general basically looks at that and he's like, well, that's not my problem. Good luck, son. And he leaves, and Shifu kind of condescendingly looks over at Shang and just says, day one, and makes a little tick mark on his notes because he is there to report back to the Emperor.
Yeah.
About the progress on training up the army.
Yeah, that's something that they mention, that Shifu is meant to be their small-scale villain for not just Shang, but also for Mulan, because he is going to kind of be a little bit of an incendiary force when it comes to, like, her troubles in camp, and also later when she gets revealed as a woman. They mention on the commentary track that with the tent scene, they think that they didn't get across what they were trying to get across, which is very interesting to me because, for one thing, I think the tent scene communicates exactly what it needs to in terms of the character of Shang having this conflict where he both wants to impress his dad and properly fill the shoes that his dad has given him effectively, but then also has this antagonistic force against him in Chi-Fu, and also then, like, what ultimately, like, the possibility of his not being able to corral and train up his army because it's filled with big dumb idiots. Like, there's that aspect of it. I think that all gets across quite well. But then there's the part of it that, hey, all artists have doubt when it comes to their work and their success in making it, including, you know, $60 million movies made by Disney. So, hey, make your damn art and be proud of it. And if you get a little self-conscious about it and aren't sure something is working, yes, examine it, but also don't be. Make your damn art.
Make your damn art. I was going to say what I find interesting about Shang being in this tent with the general and Chi-Fu is it's an interesting dynamic, or dichotomy, I should say, of Chi-Fu, who is here entirely in bad faith. He has no intention of, like, giving Shang any kind of benefit of the doubt, any kind of leniency. And even if Shang did the absolute best job he did, it's very clear from the start that Chi-Fu has no interest in giving him any credit.
Yeah.
Like, he is an antagonistic force because he's almost, like, attempting to sabotage Shang here. And he's very explicit about that intention. Where, on the other hand, we have the general who, I don't say believes too much in his son, but very clearly is kind of putting this position on his son with incredibly, like it seems like a very spur of the moment decision, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he believes in his son to the point where it's almost like a flaw. Like, he can't foresee any possible troubles Shang might run into that he ought to prepare him for. He's like, nope, you can do it. It'll be fine. Anyways, goodbye.
I kind of disagree with that reading.
Not so much. Like, I'm saying it this way. Like, let me try to articulate this a bit better. I'm saying it this way because of something that is going to happen to the general that they both are entirely unprepared for because of how optimistic they are about this war and this arrangement.
That's fair. I agree with it.
Like, that's what I think I'm getting at, is like this. There is a dichotomy between the general and Chifu's position and opinion on how things are going and how they're going to turn out.
Yeah, that I agree with that more than I agree with the take that he has faith in his son specifically. I read it more as he is encouraging his son who is worried because he doesn't believe in himself enough. Like, it's one of those, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of what I was getting at when I said I don't want to say that he has unjust faith in his son, because that's not what it is. But I feel like because specifically Chifu is there as, like, the comparison,
mm-hmm.
I think there's, like, an interesting dichotomy between those two specifically in how they treat Shang and how that kind of plays into things.
Mm-hmm.
Because the general is incredibly confident. He even says, like, oh, when I see you again, we'll both drink to, like, an easy victory, or whatever he says. I don't know if he says easy victory, but he's very assured that this is going to be, like, a war that they win.
Yeah. So, we're back to Shang coming out of the tent.
Mm-hmm.
And coming across his very disorganized men. This perfect army. The best army that's ever been seen in China. And
the greatest soldiers of all time.
He comes out and sees all of his fucked up little men. Shang is like, all right, who started it? Who did this? And they all back away and point, and there is Mulan huddled on the ground, completely uninjured.
To Shang's credit, I don't even think he asks who started it. He just says soldiers, like, and everyone fucking stops and immediately throws the blame onto Mulan in, I guess, indignance of like, what? Don't yell at us.
They point to Mulan, and he approaches, like, what the fuck is happening? And she gets up and is, like, kind of immediately flustered by him, which, yeah, I mean, I'd be too. For one thing, he's hot. For another thing, he's big and scary. But
and also, your boss.
Yeah, this is my boss. And he's, like, sexy or whatever. But this is the moment where we get the name Ping in Mulan fishing around for names, specifically from Mushu, who is not being helpful for most of it.
After Mulan introduces herself, or rather, I should say, after Ping introduces himself.
Yes.
Shang is like, what the fuck kind of name is Ping? Let me see your conscription order. And Ping hands him the scroll, and Shang opens it up and he goes, wait, Fa Zhu? Like the Fa Zhu? I didn't know. And Chifu has heard of Fa Zhu. Like, establishing, no, Mulan's father was, like, on some shit. He was doing
like a war hero or something.
The fucking Emperor's Council knows him.
Yeah.
But they also know that, or at the very least, they're like, I didn't think Fa Zhu had a son. He's never mentioned you. And Ping goes, yeah, he doesn't like to talk about me much, and goes to, like, spit to try and sell their manliness. And it is just the saddest, drippiest loogie. And Chief goes, oh, that's why he doesn't talk about you, because you're an idiot.
Yeah. I also forgot, before we move on to the best thing to come out of this movie, period.
Of course.
There is a brief sequence where they, they show like an overhead shot of the camp, and Mulan is in this sad little tent out by the pigs.
Right, yeah.
What a shame.
Out by the pigs. What a shame. And speaking of shame, I will also say it's interesting that Mulan set out on this quest to, like, honor her father and, like, honor her family, and, like, is kind of making a fucking ass of herself as a man so far. But I think it's interesting to look at this and see how much more affordance is given to her as a man, even acting this ridiculous and, like, this much of a buffoon, compared to how she was treated as a woman for having a big fuck up that messed shit up.
Yeah.
With, like, the matchmaker. I think that's interesting. I think this movie's about stuff. I think it's saying something.
And I'm sure there's a devil's advocate argument that, like, oh no, because they're conscripting people in the army, they can kind of afford to forgive them for now. I don't want to fucking hear it. I think this movie is about gender, actually, and the fact that it's war, like, the fact that they're being conscripted, like, that's part of the point. At last, Mulan, as Ping, goes into the, like, camp proper, and everyone still fucking hates her. Because, understandable. But Shang is here, and he does not have his shirt on. Oh, no.
Yeah.
Apparently this moment was part of a request from fucking Michael Eisner himself, who was CEO of Disney at the time. After screenings, he wanted a little bit more romance in the movie, so we get this moment where Shang has his shirt off, and that was, like, always in the movie, but we specifically have the moment where Mulan, like, leans out of the lineup to look at him.
to ogle his man titties.
Which, I mean, girl same.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
Girl same.
But yeah, this is the lead-in to getting down to business to defeat the Huns.
Yeah. Yeah, but before he does that, he's issuing a little test.
Oh, yes.
A little test for everyone.
The test.
He's walking through the lineup, and I forget what, like, he's talking about how he's gonna shape these boys into men, how he's gonna harden them and make them the best soldiers China's ever seen. And, I don't know, Yao says something, I forget exactly, but he mouths off, and Shang stops, calls Yao out by name, and everyone immediately steps backwards and kind of leaves him out to dry. And it looks like Shang's about to shoot him with a fucking arrow, but he doesn't. He aims up and blasts that arrow into a post in the middle of camp. It's like a big ol', like, maybe 15-foot pole.
Yeah.
Maybe even 20 feet, I don't know. It's a tall-ass wooden pole, and the arrow is lodged now directly, like, out of the top of it. Shang is like, okay, go get the arrow. And Yao very comedically mutters under his breath, yeah, I'll get the arrow, pretty boy, and I'll do it with my shirt on.
Yeah, but Shang then issues even more of a challenge, because the men are expected to climb this pole with weights hanging off of both of their wrists. Yeah, and
big fucking stone discs representing discipline and strength, respectively.
Yes. And obviously none of them can do it. Shang is like, he's so disappointed in them. And that's
what we get. Got a long way to go, he says.
And that's when we get down to business to defeat the Huns.
Yes, this is a song I'm sure fucking everybody has heard of, even if you have never seen this movie.
Everyone knows Make a Man Out of You, which is sung not by Shang's voice performer, BD Wong, similar to Mulan's voice actress. He passes the totem to somebody else. Specifically, Donny Osmond, who is an actor and singer.
This song is a fucking certified banger.
Yeah.
And these men are getting pushed to their fucking limits.
They're getting fucked up.
Yeah. Shang is doing shit like throwing fucking rocks at people. He's having them do obstacle courses, run through cannon fire, and we get little interjections from all the soldiers about what they're feeling and how they're also getting fucked up by this. I think it's a cool moment of showing that, like, oh, all these, like, tough, rugged men are also, like, weak babies.
Yeah.
Like, all of these dudes are new to the concept of being in the army, and they are all in, like, a fucking tizzy about it.
We also, throughout this, we see Mushu, quote-unquote, helping Mulan by fucking up her performance and getting Shang really fucking mad at her. To the point...
trying to cheat for her.
Cheating for her and definitely not helping her, and when she tries to do stuff on her own, she... she's too weak. She can't do a lot of the tasks.
She can't keep up.
She can't keep up even with the other weaklings, and it gets to a point where, like, at some point she's, like, has, like, heavy buckets of water across her shoulders and she falls. And this goes back to that moment earlier where they talk about when she is regressing in her story, she moves right to left. And that's something that happens here where she like, falls when she's going in that direction, and Shang ends up picking up her buckets and ultimately decides to send her home. He cannot make a man out of her.
He says, "You're unsuited for the rage of war.
Yeah.
So go home." And I really like this moment.
Mm-hmm.
Especially in the context of, like, everything that, like, Mulan has happened, and, like, the threat that she's been under. Because what this represents to Mulan is an out. Like, she gets sent home, and, like, that's it. That's it. Her, like, presumably she's not going to have to send her father back in her place. Like, and she's not going to get discovered as having disguised herself as a man.
Mm-hmm.
It's an out. Like, she has her out. Shang is dismissing her. And granted, this is, like, dishonorable, but, you know, presumably, up to this point, like, the main reason she went, like, and did this was to protect her father, and her father's protected, and she can go home to him now. But that's not what she ends up doing.
Yeah. Yeah, in leaving, she decides one last time to attempt to climb the wooden pole in order to retrieve the arrow. And this is a moment that I think is so cool and valuable for this movie, where she realizes that it is not just a matter of strength, but also this is a game of wits as well. Because when she falls one last time, she looks at the weights and figures out how to, like, wrap them around each other, around the back of the pole, so that way she can use it to lean against and climb up the pole. And it's a great moment to, again, show that strength is not the only thing that matters. And it is true. Like, she retrieves the arrow, and then the next...
We see the sun rise over the camp as all the soldiers kind of come out in awe, and Shang finally steps out, only to find the arrow land at his feet, and Ping sitting on top of this pole, smiling down at him.
Yeah, and to continue, from now on, she's able to train properly and, like, succeed in the tasks that before she was failing at. And while it is clear that she's gotten stronger and better at these physical activities, that's the turning point, is realizing that that's not just what it's about.
Yeah, and not just her. Like, this is, like, very much a rising tide raises all ships thing, because now that Mulan has figured this out and kind of demonstrated this to the whole camp, like, there's a massive morale boost. They all cheer, and they're all, like, you see their camaraderie has now been, like, solidified with this little act that Mulan has done. And we get, you know, the refrain of the song in, like, a different key now, I think. And the, like, backing track is gone, so it's more of, like, a very sturdy, like, chant. Almost like a military cadence.
Yeah.
where we watch all the men now succeeding with the trading alongside Mulan.
Yeah, the colors also intensify throughout the back half of this, which I think is a cool touch. I like that.
It's such a cool moment. And before we move on from it entirely, I want to talk about, like, the weights again.
Okay.
Because you mentioned, like, because Shang referred to them as strength and discipline, and there's a fun little bit of foreshadowing right before the song where he remarks that they will need both to reach the arrow.
Mm-hmm.
Where, you know, you take it as him being like, oh, like, he's being, like, cheeky. He's being, like he's, like, saying, like, oh, yeah, and I'm not going to let you climb without these weights. But it's very cool because it's like, you're not sure if he meant this as like, oh, literally you need both to reach the arrow, but I think it really enhances, like, the metaphor you were talking about, where Mulan is able to apply discipline and strength by cleverly analyzing how to apply them best to the situation.
Yeah.
Like, I think it works in, like, the metaphor's favor. I think it's cool.
Yeah.
When they make the metaphor literal, it's neat. It's a neat moment.
Yeah.
Good movie.
Good movie. So, the colors that are brightening throughout the song serve not just to contrast the earlier moments in the song, but also to once again contrast the Huns because, oh no, we're experiencing them again. They're back.
We get a scene of Shan Yu posted the fuck up on a tree, and his hawk is circling back, and it drops in his hand like a little dolly, and this doll, it's like just a little, like, rag doll with, like, hair and a dress. There is something fucking haunting about this object. Does the commentary mention anything about how this doll was designed? Because we both notice it's like, it's got a look to it. Like, these big black eyes and this kind of, like, desaturated color and this little mouth that's not quite happy, not quite sad, but just looks like if a doll could have 1,000-yard stare, this doll has it.
Yeah, if they mentioned it on the commentary track, I either don't remember it or didn't write it down here.
It's just one of those, like, little design things that I think sticks with you.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah. He hands it around to his troops. And he's got a couple of guys who hang out with him most frequently. And they all pass the little dolly around and are, like, sniffing it specifically, which is so eerie and creepy in such, like, a visceral way to me. And the one guy especially kind of lands on this thing of, like, it smells like smoke from...
Yeah, sulfur.
Like, sulfur.
From Imperial cannons.
Yeah. And Shan Yu says, well, we're just going to have to pay them a visit and return a doll to this little girl. And that's so upsetting.
Yeah, it's not just like the sulfur. Like, each of them picks something different off of it. One of them gets white horsehair identifying Imperial stallions. Another gets the sulfur, and another gets, I think, it's like something that identifies immediately, oh, this is from, like, a village in the Tungshao Pass.
Mm-hmm.
So we now know immediately the Huns are fully aware of the ambush that the general had planned for them.
Yeah. So they leave to do their fuck-ass bullshit.
Dastardly deeds.
And we get another comedy scene involving Mulan. This was the one and only time that the commentary track really made me grit my teeth. Because, in their exact words, you can't have a cross-dressing movie without a bathroom scene. Yay!
But I think it's interesting they refer to this movie as a cross-dressing movie, because hey. Oh, this movie's not about gender. Shut the fuck up.
Shut up. I do really like this scene, regardless of how I feel sometimes when, like, you know, the whole, like, a girl who is dressed as a boy and the differences between men and women, like, how that gets kind of played up for laughs sometimes in a way that makes me roll my eyes. I do like this scene a lot. I think it's fun. And I think Mulan's horror is appropriate in it because She has gone off to a lake by herself to wash up. She feels a little grody after training and kind of being on the road for a little while. And she goes in the lake by herself. Mushu and Cricky and I think Khan are also all here together with her. Mushu and Mulan are bickering because that's something that they kind of do at this point. I forget exactly what their conversation is.
It's about it's specifically about bathing habits, because Mushu is arguing that Mulan is taking an unnecessary risk by coming out here to bathe.
That's right, yeah.
Because people will see her, and she is arguing that just because she looks like a man doesn't mean she has to smell like one. And Mushu says some fucking freak shit about how he likes the corn chip smell of feet.
This movie is also for perverts. Speaking of...
This movie is for perverts, and Mushu's the biggest one.
Speaking of perverts, and this movie being for them, the three are here.
The naked men.
The gang of three, as they refer to them in the commentary track. They come running to the lake, completely naked, except for the last pair of underwear, which gets dropped on Mushu's head specifically. They all jump into the lake, cut to Mulan looking fucking horrified, because you know what, bitch? You're so right for that. What an astounding thing. You came here to be by yourself. They didn't have to do it like this to you like this.
Yeah, and Ling, I believe, is the first to spot Ping, and he's actually excited to see him. Oh, hey, it's Ping. Yo, what up? And Ping or Mulan. I'm gonna switch back and forth with the names, so I'm not gonna do it. Mulan is visibly uncomfortable, actively swinging away from him, oh, hey guys, how's it going? I actually just finished, so I'm leaving. Goodbye. And Ling misinterprets this as
they got off on the wrong foot.
Yeah, they got off on the wrong foot, hesitation. And not hesitation. What is the fucking word I can't think of? Whatever.
Apprehension, maybe.
Apprehension. That is the word. Thank you. I knew it was an A word.
Yeah.
God bless you, Diana, for being so good at words.
I'm doing my best.
Yeah, but they reintroduce themselves to Ping, where Ling says, "I'm Ling." Shampoo says, "I'm Shampoo," and Yao, free ballin' and free cockin' on top of a rock, declares himself Yao, king of the rock.
I love that moment so fucking much. Harvey Fierstein is an inspired choice for this movie. It's so good. And yeah, it's a moment that, I wish they had kind of let this play out more and took it a little bit more seriously. Because, again, their point of it is kind of to be, again, they called it their awkward lake scene. And it's it's awkward in the sense that, obviously, Mulan is trying to hide something for understandable reasons. But I also wish that they had more time to talk and, get to know each other. But I also recognize, the economic storytelling choice of just kind of having this scene be very, very brief. And the reason that it is so brief is because Ling jumps up very suddenly while he is talking to Mulan and is like, ow, what is that? Something just bit me. Something just bit me on my butt. Yeah. And Mushu pops up out of the lake. Ling sees him and is like, oh my god, it's a snake. And they all start...
Yeah, a snake.
Yeah, a snake.
Not a lizard, weirdly enough. They're really non-committal about what kind of reptile Mushu is.
We really don't know. But yeah, snake. And
Ling's just stupid.
Ling is stupid. Mulan makes her escape, and we get a very good silhouette shot of the three of them all on this now very tiny rock. And after Ling makes a sarcastic comment about Yao being king of the rock, he gets shoved into the water.
Yeah,
get wrecked,
shoved
idiot.
into the fucking water.
He's now king of the lake, in the bottom of it, where people drown.
Yeah. Rip to Ling.
Rip to Ling. And then, we debated on what part of Ling's body Mushu bit him. He does confirm that he bit him on the ass because he is now brushing his teeth.
Yeah.
Dog, you didn't have to do it that way, but okay.
He specifically says... like, he says to Mulan, all right, now get dressed. I don't want to have to bite any more butts for you.
Ugh.
God.
He's...
Mushu, you're a freak.
This movie's for perverts.
Speaking of perverts and such, Mulan says, like, yeah, if I ever have to see a naked man again, I'm gonna be really mad, or something to that effect. And then the entire rest of the army runs past her naked, and we just see, like, just this look of, like, wide-eyed whelp on her face.
Well, it appears that since most of the men are out of the camp, Chifu and Shang are having a discussion in a tent. And
yeah, they're having their staff meeting.
And Mulan inadvertently eavesdrops on them, I would say. Like, she doesn't mean to, but she does stick around for it. And she hears a discussion or really an argument, because Chifu was basically like, I am not going to recommend that you assholes go to the front line. These men are still not prepared. Like, you are so young. You are not ready for this. And Shang is like, they're going to be so disappointed. We train so hard. But Chifu is like, no, I'm like, my official recommendation is that you do not go to war, basically.
Yeah. I think a point to be made here is, like, the wording is different, but, like, Shifu is not being charitable here.
No.
Like, it is very clear he has a specific vendetta against Shane, and he also punctuates this by, like, again, making a dig at Shane's position and his relationship to his father, because he says, you may be the general's son, but I'm the emperor's counsel, and by the way, I got that job on my own.
Yeah. Which, you know what? To be fair to Shifu, he ain't wrong. Like, come on.
Fair, but also he is very much being a bitch right now.
You know, he's being a little
being a big weenie.
Yeah. And Mulan is upset by this for understandable reasons. Kind of like, I did put a lot of work into that. And Mushu is like, no, we have come too far for this.
Yeah.
And
before we see what Mushu enacts, I want to point out a little moment where, as Shang storms out of the tent,
oh yeah,
Ping says, hey, in, like, their man voice, hey, you hold him and I'll punch, as like I'm making a man joke, but, like, Shang doesn't even, like, acknowledge this. He kind of just walks past, and Mulan kind of drops the, like, heavy man voice, like, slightly. Mm-hmm. We hear her voice kind of come through, and she says, like, in a much more earnest tone, hey, for what it's worth, I think you're a great captain. Mushu does not care for this shit at all.
Mushu says, no. I have worked too hard to have Mulan go home at this point. And
because, as we recall, Mushu is doing this for entirely selfish reasons. He's doing this. He's poaching the Great Stone Dragon's responsibility. To be fair, the Great Stone Dragon has not fucking shown up yet. Maybe he thinks Mushu can handle it. Mushu goes into Chifu's tent and uses, like, the official war stationery or whatever to forge a letter from the front lines from General Shang. And at first, Cricky is like, writes a very cordial, polite letter of, oh, hey, we'd like you to come hang out with us. And Mushu's like, no, dumbass, this is war. Make this sound urgent. Make it sound absolutely vital. And I suppose that is what's written, because Mushu approves and immediately snatches it away to go enact this plan. And do you want to describe how this letter gets delivered to Shifu? Because it's pretty great.
Yeah. Mushu and Cricky enlist the help of a delightful, cuddly, just very chill panda.
Yeah, and it's chewing on bamboo the whole time.
Chewing on bamboo, just being chill as fuck. And they ride this thing through the grass towards Chifu as he himself is getting ready to bathe in the lake. And
not getting ready, he's leaving because all the men were making fun of him.
Oh, that's right.
They ruined his slippers.
They approach Chifu with the scroll, and Mushu is doing, like, his big boy voice to threaten him into taking it and making him believe that they are a person for sure under the armor. Don't look too closely at us. And
this is definitely not a suit of armor filled with straw.
It definitely isn't. And Chi-Fu gets the letter and, you know, reads it off and is like, oh shit, I guess they're going to the front lines. And to his credit,
he looks horrified.
He's horrified. And to his credit, though, it appears he does not lie to Shang and the troops about them, like, being able to go to war, despite the fact that this letter is fucking fake. Because
he locks the fuck in.
He locks in.
He calls Shang captain.
Yeah. And when he turns around to ask follow-up questions to the mysterious armored man on a panda, they're gone. The panda went into a tree.
Yeah, it climbed up the tree, and we see the armor kind of, like, flopping around as it's pulled up. It's great. It's a great bit.
They apparently had to fight to keep the panda joke in. Like...
What? Really?
Yeah, it sounds like higher-ups really wanted to cut it out. They didn't like it, but they were like, no, you can take so much away from us, but we get to keep our panda. This is also the
animators would love to animate a panda. Why would you take that from them?
Why would you take that? I think this is also a good time to talk about, as they do in the commentary at this point, the fact that Mushu and Cricky are, like, genuinely helpful characters who are important to moving the plot along and also to actively changing the course of the story. Those are the points that they bring up. Because so often characters like this in Disney movies in the 90s and also to this day are kind of there as set dressing, either to look cute and sell, like, plushes, or to just, like, be the ones to consistently crack jokes throughout, or, like, have, like, physical comedy bits happen to them. And the directors and producer talk about how they did not want their, like, kind of small mascot characters to do that. They wanted them to have an active role in the story. And this is, like, kind of the linchpin moment for that, where Mushu, with the help of Cricky, literally sends their main character to war. And I think that's cool. I love it when decisions like that are made. I think it's great. Yeah. And my face is very warm, so that's all I'm going to say on that.
Too.
Do you want to take a little break?
Do you want to take a break? I could keep going.
I would like to pause so I can take some medicine.
Sure.
So now that we've shipped off to war, we move directly into another sequence that I really like in this movie, which is the song Girl Worth Fighting For.
Yeah, and if we were talking about stuff sounding like a military cadence before, this song specifically.
This song's a lot of fun. The basic premise is, as they're walking off to war, and they're kind of, like, miserable about it, Ling kind of brings up the point, hey, think of the girl that you're fighting the war for. Imagine your perfect woman. And they have this gorgeous animation sequence that's done in the style of, like, classic Chinese ink paintings. Apparently done
brush paintings.
A technique that they use techniques similar to the ones that they animated the opening credit sequence with. And they note on the commentary track that this is their, like, pink elephants moment. And if that's not an entirely familiar term to you, the song Pink Elephants on Parade, I'm explaining for the audience.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. If you've ever seen the movie Dumbo, which is a Disney movie from the 50s, they have this infamous sequence called Pink Elephants on Parade. It's a song. And it is this surrealist horror show masterpiece of, like, bubbly pink elephants dancing around and being terrifying. There's also a lot of flashing lights, so if you don't know the sequence and you want to look it up, just be cautious of that, because as someone who doesn't have any kind of, like, physical issues or, like I don't have, like, epilepsy or similar seizure disorder, it's hard to watch for me, so just know that if you're gonna look it up. But I think they're pointing it out less as this is their, like, horrifying, surrealist dream sequence, and more specifically, this is the moment where we get to show off as animators, because that's what Pink Elephants is. It's the animators on that movie going haywire, and that is kind of similarly what they're doing here, although to a more, beauteous effect, I would say. One of the other, things I want to note from the commentary track about this song is that during screenings to presumably execs, they got a lot of notes on the song not being quote-unquote politically correct, which is a term that gets slung around nowadays.
That's very funny, because I feel like it's very much not supposed to be.
And that's what they said is, that's the point of the fucking song.
Yeah, it's specifically there to be a point of friction with Mulan, because as Mulan is walking, like, women are ogling her in her pink persona. They're like seeing her, and they're like giggling and looking away, like, oh, look at this handsome soldier boy, I want to give him a kiss.
Yeah.
And Mulan is like, oh, I don't know how to feel about that.
Well, they're specifically, the notes were specifically on the fact that it was making the soldiers look bad, because they're being extremely sexist.
Sure, and that's the point.
Yeah, that's the point.
Yeah, I'm saying, like, this entire scene, like, on top of, like, what I say is, like, it's a point of friction with Mulan of, yeah, this is a part of the gender, the male gender, you are now being confronted with. The weird relationship it has with women specifically.
Yeah.
And there's a bit where they're all describing what they see as the perfect woman, right? Shimpo says, I don't give a fuck about personality or looks. I care about cook. I care about how she makes food.
How that bitch will cook for me. Sorry.
Yeah. He doesn't say bitch, to be fair. Shimpo is...
He would never say the word bitch.
Yeah.
But he might think
Yao wants... Like, Ling describes, like, the woman's, like, beauty and illustrious. Yao wants a woman who will, like, adore him and dote on him and be impressed by his strength. And Mulan, when they turn to Mulan, like, they're like, and Ping, what kind of woman do you want? Mulan does a thing where she hesitantly basically describes herself. She says, a girl who's got a brain and always speaks her mind. And they ponder that for a moment and then immediately go, nah, that's weird. You're weird for that.
Yeah.
Why would you want that?
The thing that I love about this scene is the way in which it relates to and leads into one of my favorite moments in a movie ever, like, flat out.
Yes.
Because this is kind of the last comedic scene that we truly get in the movie.
Yeah.
And it is also the last song of the movie.
Yeah. The last song.
Yeah. And the song ends, they do, like, a funny whistling nod to the Tchaikovsky's 1812 overture. They're so happy,
they're building up to
go lucky, talking about
building
the women.
Up to...
And then they kind of crest a rise, and the song cuts out.
Big line. Well, they build up to the big final, like, refrain of, like, oh, what do we want? A girl worth fighting. And before they say four, like you said, the music cuts out. Smash cut to,
oh no, we've reached the pass, and holy shit, the entire village is gone. Oh no, everyone's fucking dead. Oh god, oh god, the horrors of war.
The entire fucking village just burned to the ground. Everything is burnt out. Like, you see the looks on the soldiers' faces of just the abject horror as they're looking around. Mulan comes upon the doll from the previous scene with Shan Yu, which is incredibly dark because we know, looking at this, what happened to that girl. Shan Yu really did bring back her doll and then do this to the village, and not just to the village, because we hear Chifu call Captain Shang. They crest the hill and they see, strewn about in piles in the snow, darkened with mud and blood, soldiers. The entire detachment of the Chinese army laid to fucking waste.
Yeah.
There is not a single survivor. And Champeau solemnly comes over the hill and hands Shang his father's helmet and just says, "The general."
Yeah. They apparently had 3 different versions of this shot that they were choosing between. And
Oh boy.
they described it as like small, medium, and large. And small was like the fewest amount of bodies, and large was lots of death. And they had to fight in order to use their medium version of it. Like they didn't want that one. Like the animators and the people behind it wanted in the movie. The execs were like, no, but they did get their medium shot. Shang has like his father's helmet and is more or less like kind of leaving a memorial to him and the fallen army by placing the helmet on top of a sword stuck in the snow. And
Yeah.
Mulan approaches him and, you know, says like, "I'm so sorry," and he just doesn't answer her because and she ends up leaving the little doll next to his sword, which is a moment that I've always loved because it places the same weight of the tragedy on the army and the village, because these were all like innocent people who had been slaughtered by this army.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it's a very poignant moment of kind of, like, up to this point, everything said about war has been in the context of what men do in war and how war is important to men specifically. And I love this moment of Mulan placing this memorial as like a rejection of that idea.
Yeah.
Of that, like, men is the domain of war. Men's like war is men's burden and all that. And it's like, no, this shit is awful for everyone.
Yeah.
And don't fucking forget that.
Yeah, the commentary track also ties this moment to Shang and Mulan having a connection between them being at war more or less for their fathers and to honor their fathers. And now that weight is very different for Shang because his father has passed away. So honoring him is not going to... It's not going to come back to his dad where he can more or less say, "Look, I have done the thing that honors you." And Mulan is, like, they kind of have that moment of connection when Mulan goes up to him while he's leaving this memorial to his dad. And also then, like, kind of leaving behind this symbol of girlhood. And there's something about it, I feel like, in a way, like, this is no longer about her dad and her honoring him. Like, she's now in survival mode. Like, she has to do this for her above all else because...
Yeah.
Like, otherwise she's not gonna make it.
I was going to say, more than, like, survival mode, I kind of saw this also as, like, an embracing the cause thing. Because, like, her father talks about, like, in the argument way earlier in the movie, where she asks him, "Oh, would you be willing to die for honor?" And he says, "I'm willing to die for what's right."
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like this is also kind of Mulan, like, internalizing that in her own way.
Yeah. I like that more than what I originally said.
Yeah. Oh, that's fine. This is a discussion. These are ideas.
Yeah. No, I'm not.
Yeah.
That wasn't me putting myself down. That was, I agree with you more.
Oh, thank you.
But,
they got, I was gonna say, Shang basically gives them marching orders. The only place they can head the Huns off now is at the Tongxiao Pass.
Yeah, and so
that's where they're gonna go.
They're going there, and they're, like, in a line, and I guess Mulan is the only person with a horse at this point, because they are what is left of the army, and...
Yeah.
Like that's it. It's just these few soldiers, and...
Yeah.
So Khan has been tasked with pulling their, like, weapons cart full of scary rockets. Yeah.
These cool dragon-faced firework cannons.
these cool dragon face firework cannons that Mushu and Cricky accidentally set off. And
yeah, they set one off, and Shang writes back, it's like, what the fuck? You just gave away our position. We're going to be... And then he's shot by an arrow.
Oh god, the Huns are here. Oh no, oh god, the Huns are here.
Oh my god, all these arrows are coming. Oh my god, one of them's on fire. Oh my god, it just hit the cart full of fucking explosives.
Yeah. So
this wagon made of straw and wood and full of gunpowder.
Yeah, so they lose the caravan. Mulan is able to get her horse and her two little guys, and in running away from, like, the burning fire, and also they're now being actively cornered by the Huns, they look behind them, and in the coolest fucking shot of this movie, the Huns crest the hill of the pass, and this is, like, the first time that you really get a full scale of just about how big the Huns' army is.
Yeah, they shoot off, like, there's, like, an initial wave of them that they fire, like, the handful of cannons they were able to save. They shoot, like, the Huns that were shooting arrows at them, and then the first couple that crested the hill, and then it's silent for a couple seconds as the smoke clears. And then... like, the entire fucking horizon is full of them.
Yeah.
And they only have one fucking cannon left now.
The Hun army, I believe, is one of the things that got enhanced using CGI, and you can tell, like, in the best way, the way these guys, like, move when they start coming down the mountain towards what remains of the Chinese Imperial Army is so eerie and fluid, and I like how it's differentiated from the, I would almost call it, like, the more intimate animated style of the characters up to this point, when they are rendered, like, clearly fully by, like, hand, where it's just hand-drawn animation, whereas the CGI, like, there's something alien about the way that they move when they're enhanced by computer technology in the 90s. And I just really like that. And in this moment, when the Huns are coming down from the mountain, Mulan looks down, and in the reflection of her sword, she notices a mountain above the pass. And
a big fucking ice sheet. Like, 50-foot overhang just stuck to the side of this mountain.
Yeah. And... she yanks the last cannon out of somebody's hands, and
Yao, who was ordered by Shang to aim it at Shan Yu, because Shang was basically fully prepared of, okay, we're gonna go down fighting here. This is it. We're gonna try to take out their leader, and then go down taking as many people as we can with us. This is it. There's
10 of us. Mulan grabs the cannon, and instead of at Shan Yu, she aims it at the mountain. And she
has to get way closer, though. She's basically right, like, way out from the rest of the army's position on her own.
Yeah. I like this moment because it does kind of show, one, both, like, her wit, but also her willingness to put herself in danger to save other people. And because she runs forward with the cannon and ends up using Mushu, who can breathe fire?
I guess because he's like a guardian spirit. Maybe this is like signifying, he's kind of earning back his place and his powers, maybe.
Yeah, connection to the elements and all that. But she uses him to light the cannon, and he gets, like, swept up into it in the crossfire. And he's pissed. He's like, you fucking missed him. He was right there and you missed.
He was 3 feet in front of you, and... that 3 feet is also sword slashing range, because Shan Yu does slash Mulan with a fucking sword.
Yeah.
With this. I want to also bring this back, tie this moment back to, hey, Mulan is applying the discipline and strength she got from the army in a way appropriate to the situation here, huh?
Huh. Wow, that's crazy.
Huh, how about that? Because what happens next, Diana?
Well, what happens next is, the snow on the mountain just kind of collapses. She got good aim, and the big sheet of ice is now coming down on the heads of the Huns. Oh dear God, there's so much snow. She has caused a full-on avalanche. Go, girl, go.
Oh yeah, and Shan Yu looks fucking, like, you see the moment of realization dawn on him, and he looks scared in a way he has not for the entire movie.
Yeah. And the avalanche starts coming down, and there's a good, like, small comedic beat where the gang of three are like, no, we gotta help Ping. He's our boy now. He's our bud. We're here to help him.
We gotta help him.
They start running, and then they realize, oh no, it's an avalanche, and they rightfully, in quotes, chicken out. They're not chickening out. Get away from the avalanche. It's gonna kill you.
They hoof it in the opposite direction. They get the fuck out of there.
They get the fuck out of there.
The entire Hun army is overtaken and buried, including Shan Yu, who, on his huge, scary horse, is, like, just subsumed by this tide of snow, as Mulan is scrambling back to her horse and trying to ride to safety.
Yeah. But she, alas, along with Shang, gets caught up in the crossfire, or cross-avalanche, I guess, of the avalanche coming down. Very cool shot of Mulan breaking out of the snow as if, like, cresting a wave, and she's got Shang with her, and they more or less ride this avalanche, which, unrealistic but cool as fuck. I don't want to hear a single word about it. Do not CinemaSins this moment. It rules. And
it's cool because it's almost like it's animated like a fucking river rapid. Like they're swimming in this snow.
It's so cool.
It's
but
so fucking cool. The colors of this scene, it's like almost all white except for like the specks of black and color against it.
Yeah.
Great.
They note it in the commentary as an emotionally realistic moment, which I love.
Yes. I love emotional truth.
Any aspiring writers out there, keep that phrase in mind. If something is not quote-unquote actually realistic, go with what is emotionally realistic. That is far more powerful and better for storytelling. But
no, I'm going to expand that to any artist. Because emotional truth is something I've heard talked about in the context of paintings. It applies great to if you're a game developer. Yeah, go for it. Make shit cool and real in that sense.
Yeah. Speaking of emotional, a moment that may or may not get you, I don't know. But the what remains of the Chinese army, which is maybe 5 guys at this point, are huddled behind a rock to avoid the avalanche. And as Mulan and Shang are swept by on Khan, they all band together to, like, reach out and grab them. And
you fire an arrow with a rope on it towards them, which Yao comedically fumbles at first. Like, he doesn't grab it in time and the rope just slips out of his hands. But because Mulan is so fucking cool, she catches that shit and shoots it back into their hands.
Yeah. And Yao is apparently not as powerful as he believes himself to be, because he does almost go over the edge, but Mulan has proven herself to these men, and they are willing to help her. They all grab on and are not doing great, and then Qianpo just kind of comes and picks them all up, and they are able to bring Mulan and Shang to safety.
It's a really beautiful moment of camaraderie because they are literally laying down their lives for their fellow soldier.
Yeah.
They almost go over the cliff with them.
I do like this moment.
It's great. And Yao punctuates this once they're safe, declares Ping the king of the mountain. And it's really cute. It's really sweet.
It's really sweet, but oh no, oh dear God. As Shang is thanking Mulan for saving his life, she's like, oh, ow, ow, ow.
Oh, fuck my bowels.
Ow. Hey, she's just been stabbed with a fucking sword. Someone get a
Lashed across
doctor.
the fucking stomach. Oh no.
Oh no.
Thankfully, the medic didn't get swept away in the avalanche or
Yeah.
shot to death by Huns. They still have one of those.
Yeah.
And Mulan's vision is going fuzzy, and she's fading away as Shang says, like, hold on. And there's a cool little bit here where as she's fading away, and the way the sound distorts, and the way his, like, lips are animated, it looks like he's also saying the name. It looks and sounds like he's saying the name Mulan as she, like, as she loses consciousness. It's a cool little moment. I like this little moment.
And
Followed immediately by an unfortunate moment.
yeah, it turns out that he's gonna know her as Mulan one way or another because the doctor comes out of the tent and is like, he basically goes up to Shang and is like, hey bud, I gotta,
you want to go see this?
you gotta come see this. And
You may want to see this, sir.
yeah, Shang goes into the tent and Mulan, you know, injured, happy to see him, sits up on her pallet, her blanket falls away. Oh no, she's got tits. Oh no.
She's got fucking tits.
Oh no,
That's
uh-oh.
a girl, and
Uh-oh,
Shang's
no.
mad.
He's mad, but he does not immediately shame her. He leaves, but he doesn't say anything. It is not until fucking Chi-Fu
Not the
comes
case,
in
yeah.
and
Not
is
the
like,
case with Chi-Fu.
Chi-Fu is
fucking-
like, ew, a woman. I knew that
He
you
drags her
disgusting.
out into the snow,
Yeah.
like, like, barely clothed, tosses her into the snow before the entire army, and declares her a treacherous snake.
Yeah. Foul.
Which is, like, fucked. But she, like, comes clean. Like, unashamed says, like, my name is Mulan. I took my father's place to save his life. Like, I never meant for, like, it to go this way, but, like, it was the only way to save him. Please, like, I can't remember if she says, like, believe me. I don't think she says forgive me. But she's, like, I don't know what she is looking for specifically out of this, like, other than just understanding
Yeah.
from these men who just got through laying down their lives for her, but now that she's a woman, some of them seem like maybe uncertain. Others, to the credit of Yao Ling and Champo, seem like very ready to come to her defense because as Chi-Fu, like, says, hey, we know the law, and Shang is now presumably obligated to fucking execute her, which it seems like he's going to fucking do, and Yao Ling and Champo, like, try to stop him, but are rebuked by Chi-Fu.
Yeah. I mean, I think to your point, Mulan is specifically appealing to Shang and the fact that, like, they have a connection. Like, he too just lost his father and had expectations to live up to, so I think that's what it is. And
that's a good point. I didn't even consider that. And, yeah, right before this scene, Shang does say, like, hey, Ping, you're crazy, but I owe you my life and you have my trust.
yeah.
Like, right before this.
Yeah. And I guess it definitely works because he ends up throwing down her own sword because that's what he was going to use to kill her before her, and more or less says, like, this is, you saved my life, now we're even, basically.
Yeah, life for a life, my debt is repaid. And Chi-Fu has a really interesting reaction to this, because Shang then immediately orders them to move out. And she was like, wait, we're just going to leave her here? We can't just leave her here. And Shang's like, nope, I said move out. We're going.
Yeah, also, Chi-Fu, you're the asshole who was like, she's a woman, kill her.
Like, yeah, I guess even like for by standards of like execution, this would be considered cruel. Of like, oh, we're just leaving her on the fucking mountain to freeze to death. That's kind of fucked up. But to be fair, I guess they do leave her with like her provisions and supplies, and also Khan.
Yeah, also her horse. I think my interpretation is that Shang is aware that this is a very capable person and that she's gonna be fine. Now that Mulan's secret has been revealed, she and Mushu and Kriki all have like a pity party where they're hanging out together. Mushu finally comes clean about the fact that he was kind of in it for himself. But also, no, he believes in her now. He was an asshole and he's here for her now.
Yeah. To this movie's credit, like extremely to its credit, though to be fair, I don't know if this was as big a thing when this movie came out as it is in like animated movies now. But this is not like, oh, the third act argument betrayal thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that happens in so many children's animated movies where, oh, Mulan finds out that Mushu had ulterior motives. Oh, and now they're mad and they won't talk to each other. But they'll come together at the end of the third act to solve a problem. No. Like, they're both kind of not who they initially said they were to each other. Like, they were both kind of putting on fronts, but Mushu was like, yeah, but you were doing it to save your father. I was doing it to save my job. You're better than me for that, and I respect you. And Mulan also respects that, of like, yeah. Okay, Mushu's like, I didn't do right by you, but I want to do right by you. It's a very nice moment that I appreciate is not ruined by, like, a needless insertion of conflict.
Yeah. Although there is still conflict.
But speaking of insertion of conflict, yeah.
There is still conflict afoot because Shan Yu is built different.
He's built different, just like Ruber from Quest for Camelot.
He punches his way out of the fucking snow that buried him in this avalanche, along with, like, I think 4 other of the Huns who
his main boys.
Yeah, his main boys who had, like, hiding spots. Like, they come up from beneath shields. I think the archer, like, was full on, like, he climbed, like, part of the mountain or something.
Rock. Yeah. The archer was wedged in a rock behind a shield. Everyone else was either, like, behind a rock or on, like, higher ground already, which is really cool because it very much distinguishes Shan Yu as being built different because he is the only Hun to emerge from the avalanche itself.
Yeah. And
he just tanked that shit.
Yeah.
And also his bird.
His bird. And Shan Yu is like, all right, my army is gone. But you know what? The fucking
palace is right there.
The palace is literally right there. Like, they're overlooking it. I'm gonna go fuck up the emperor. Let's go kill this guy. And
I'm gonna finish my mission.
Mulan sees and overhears this and is like, oh fuck, we gotta get going. And
we gotta go. That man is built different. He'll kill everyone.
He's fucking scary. Let's get out of here. And so she hops on Khan, and they are on their way to intercept Shang and what remains of the Chinese army at the palace. And we are also
having a victory parade.
Yeah, we're also catching up with them. They don't seem to be enjoying this victory very much, though. It's almost like they left a woman to die. It's almost like they left a woman to die in the mountains or something.
It's almost like they're being celebrated as war heroes while the actual war hero is left disgraced on the side of a mountain, huh?
That's crazy.
That's crazy. This movie isn't about gender.
Yeah. Oh, also, there's another dragon.
Oh yeah, Dragonspotting. It's one of those fun little, like, parade dragons where it's a bunch of people in a costume.
Yeah.
Kind of dancing around, hopping and skipping and moving behind this army.
Yeah. And they're definitely not getting closer.
Towards the palace.
Yeah, they're not getting closer.
No, they're not getting closer. They're part of the parade.
They're part of the parade.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Mulan rolls up and she, like, rides into the procession right next to Shang and is like, Shan Yu's built different. He's coming. He might already be here. We're all in danger. The Emperor's in danger. You gotta believe me. And Shang is being a bit of a piss baby here, where he's like, nuh-uh, I'm not gonna believe you, actually. And Mulan makes a very good point, where she says, you said you trusted Ping. Why is Mulan any different?
Yeah, this movie's about something.
Yeah, but not gender. This movie is not about gender.
No.
You can't trick me.
Yeah. They leave Mulan behind.
Yeah. When she's like, okay, if you won't believe me, I'll find someone who does, and just goes and rides through the Imperial City.
Yeah. Unfortunately, no one believes her. They're not paying attention to this woman.
Her. They're like, oh, shut the fuck up, woman.
Yeah. Shang and the army make their way up the palace steps to greet the emperor, and as proof of Shan Yu's death, whatever, as proof of Shan Yu's death, Shang lays his fucked up sword at the emperor's feet. And
yeah, it's got kind of a flamberge blade to it. It's like got that flame like curviness to it.
Yeah. And the dragon is also here, and he's getting closer now.
Okay, yeah, he is definitely getting closer.
He's getting closer now.
But you know, how often do you get to see the Emperor up close?
How often?
You know? Like I'm sure the parade people in there are just excited to see the Emperor, and hey, is that a bird?
Hey,
Is that a
who's
bird
that bird
over there?
Oh no, the bird.
Hey, who's that?
Oh fuck, the bird snatched the sword away. Oh no, the dragon.
Hey. Oh no, the bird snatched the sword away. It's bringing it up to the roof, and one of the roof statues is not a statue at all. It's fucking Shan Yu, once again posted up in a high place like he's fucking Batman.
And then, oh no, the dragon has shed its skin, and it's what remains of the Huns, and they grab the emperor, and they entrap him in the palace.
Yeah, they fucking like tag and bag his ass. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's just they fucking grab that dude and just haul him up these stairs.
Yeah.
And they manage to get him into the palace gates, and those gates become barred. And like, whoops, the emperor is now a hostage in his own palace. Oh, we fucked up so bad, actually.
Yeah, and what remains of the Chinese army cannot get through the door.
Yeah.
But then Mulan is here.
They've picked up one of the fucking like 10-foot tall stone lion statues, and they are using it as a battering ram. And like, Jesus Christ, what was Chifu talking about? These are the greatest soldiers in China, because that thing has to weigh like 100 tons.
Well,
it's like solid granite.
We'll remember that Chimpo is here and he can do anything.
Yeah.
But Mulan is here now, and she says, "Boys, I have another idea." Cue reprise of Be a Man as the gang of 3 dress up as courtesans. And
concubines, I think, specifically.
Whatever. Concubines. They look gorgeous.
Look, some like ancient Chinese history nerd is gonna get on us if we don't say the right shit, I'm sure.
They look fantastic.
Yeah, it's great. What a fucking fun way to do the reprise for Be a Man of doing drag. It's great. Shang doesn't do drag, but he's supportive of them.
He's supportive of them.
He's in on the plan.
And also
but he's not in drag.
He also, because the way that they're going to infiltrate the palace is by, like, using sashes from their dresses to climb up poles in the way that Mulan originally did with the weights. And Shang kind of shows his support by also kind of removing his sash. And so even though he is not also dressed in drag, there is kind of like this acknowledgement of femininity in like being kind of just as powerful as like traditional masculine traits, more or less.
Yeah.
And I like that
it's
moment. Great. I do not need Shang
really
in drag.
good.
I lied. I actually would like to see that. Never mind.
Yeah,
Goodbye.
I was gonna say, speak for yourself, bitch. I do. Anyways, they get into the palace, and they're moving through, and they see the Huns, and they're like doing the very classic flirtatious. Ooh, I'm gonna flirt with the guards. Ooh, hello, boys. And one of the Huns is like, oh, it's just concubines. Ugly concubines. And bitch, rude. How dare you? They look great.
They look fantastic.
But Ling is like trying to get close to them, and a fucking like apple falls out of the bottom of his dress, because they're all using like different fruit to like pad out their body.
Yeah.
And the Hun like goes to give it back to him, and then they all simultaneously pull out their various fruits and then bash the Huns over the head with it. Yao pulls out a fucking banana, which is really funny because of what that implies.
Hey, I have the banana story, actually.
Oh my god, yes, please.
Yes, because Barry Cook specifically was the one who was like, Yao gets a banana. Yao gets a banana in
yeah.
his dress, and he is apparently, like, the only person on the production team who found it funny. Barry,
What?
you were right for this. Him pulling out a
Barry,
banana
you were
is
so right for this.
fantastic.
Yeah, that's so fucking funny because, like, one, like, it kind of... it's comedic on two levels now that I'm thinking about it. One, if you want to, like, be like, oh, the limp noodle comment at the very start of the movie really got to him.
Uh-huh.
Or two, Yao thought, if I'm gonna be a girl, I'm gonna have the biggest dick imaginable, actually. And you know what? He's fucking based for that.
He's so based for this. Yeah. They bust their way through, and they find the Emperor and Shan Yu, like, stanced up in front of each other.
Yeah, he is trying to get the Emperor. He's, like, having the Emperor, like, out on a balcony overlooking all his people. And he is fucking demanding that the Emperor bow to him. And the Emperor is doing some fucking old man stoicism here. And he's quoting Chinese proverbs at him going, no matter how the wind howls, the mountain will not bow to it. And this is pissing off Shan Yu. So he's like, okay, well then I'll just fucking kill you in front of all your people.
Yeah. But no, Mulan and Shang and the sexy gang of three are here. And
yeah, Shang catches Shan Yu's blow, and the other three spirit the Emperor out of the palace. They zipline him down.
Yeah. Oh, what was I gonna say?
Before Shan Yu can follow, I think it's either Shang or Mulan cuts the fucking rope.
Yep.
So now Shan Yu is just by himself at the palace. No more men, no more Emperor. And the entirety of China just saw him fail.
And they all clapped.
Yeah, and everyone clapped, and he's so mad. Yeah. He's so mad, he's going to kill Shang.
Yeah, no, he's out for revenge now, but Mulan says, no, he is not the one that you want. And this is the moment where she, like, pulls back her hair, and her face, like, very suddenly becomes more angular. And he's like, oh, fuck. You're the guy that tried to kill me with an avalanche and failed because I'm built different.
It's a really cool moment because Shan Yu is so fucking pissed at Shang, specifically because, hey, you just fucked up my plan B. You just got the Emperor out of my grips. I had him. You took away my victory. And Mulan then reveals herself, and Shan Yu's tone changes completely, and he just says in, like, hushed awe, the soldier from the mountain.
Yeah. And
it's this great moment of where he is genuinely in shock of, I did not think I would ever get to have my revenge on you specifically.
Yeah, no,
it's unreal to him.
Credit to Shan Yu. He does not discriminate. He's like, you're a girl? Well, I'm still gonna fucking end you.
Yeah, he drops everything to fucking have his revenge with Mulan, but also, I don't think you have to hand it to on you, because he also doesn't discriminate in who he fucking kills in war.
Yeah. No, that's fair.
This dude's ready to do some monstrous shit.
Yeah.
And they're fighting on the fucking rooftop of the palace. This is such a cool fucking fight sequence.
Mm-hmm. It's a lot of fun.
Meanwhile, we cut to Mushu and Cricky doing a fucking Batman bit in one of, like, the towers.
Yeah.
Where they're like, oh, it's like a tower full of fireworks.
Yes.
And Mushu and Cricky show up and literally throw these guys off the fucking tower, I think.
Yeah.
The guys either jump or they throw them off, but they definitely die.
They definitely die.
That's so tall.
So, like, the reason that bit is in there is because those two guys are voiced by the two directors, so they're doing a bit. They're doing a bit where they jump to their deaths.
That's fucking awesome. I love when directors do that.
But they did not want Shan Yu to fall to his death. That was very important to them, because a lot of Disney villains in this time were falling to their deaths, and they were like, that's stupid.
That's a good fucking point.
They were like, that's stupid, and we're not doing that. So instead, what's happening?
Stupid and a cop-out, yeah.
Mulan is still fighting Shan Yu on the roof, She does,
Good.
like, a cool thing where she, like, manages to flip his sword out of his hand and catch it into a pose.
Yeah.
Good bit.
He disarms her. Like, he disarms her. And, like, looking around, she, like, desperately grabs, like, her fan. Or not desperately. She grabs her fan, and Shan Yu kind of, like, laughs and says, "Oh, you're out of ideas." And then he goes to stab her, and he stabs through the fan, and she immediately folds it back up and rips it out of his hands and catches the sword and is like, "I'm not out of ideas, bitch."
Yeah, I'm cool as hell. And
I'm fucking awesome, actually, and competent, and you are fucked.
this is exactly the moment that Mushu needs. He has strapped a firework to himself. It is comedically large.
A huge firework. This thing is like a barrel.
Yeah, it looks like one of those Acme rockets from Wile E. Coyote, Roadrunner cartoons, whatever. And
Yes.
Cricky lights him up, and he blasts into Shan Yu, and Mulan is like, "All right, get off the roof, let's go," because
Get off the roof, get off the roof.
Shan Yu goes backwards into the tower full of fireworks and fucking explodes. Whee!
Yes. This is, Mulan. I love this because it's not a cop-out. Mulan is very much intentionally killing this man. She puts the fucking sword, like, she pins him to the roof with the sword so he gets hit by this fucking explosive.
Yep. She kills
And with
him.
that, we get fireworks of victory for Mulan, who has just saved literally all of China.
She descends into the crowd. Shang is also alive, yay, as are the Gang of Three.
Yay.
Still dressed up, still cunty with it. And, Chi Fu has been having a bad time. His outfit's all fucked up. And the Emperor is also here, and Chi Fu is looking, like, smug as fuck, because the Emperor is like, "You destroyed my castle, you impersonated a soldier.
You've been on some shit, Fa Mulan.
Yeah,
What's up with that?
and also you saved my life."
And
then
all of China.
And all of China. And he bows to her, which leads to everybody, like, getting on their knees and bowing to her.
When Chifu realizes what's happening, he panics and immediately does, like, the most deepest respectful on the ground bow.
Yeah. He's freaking out. Which he should be,
He's like,
because...
oh, fuck. Yeah.
Which he should be, because the Emperor, in the process of, like, congratulating Mulan, is like, "Hey, I want you to be my advisor." And she says, no, I don't think... Oh, no, what it is he's like, "You can be my advisor." And Shifu is like, there aren't any.
We're not hiring right now.
No one's hiring. And he's like, "All right, you can have his job." And
yeah, specifically, like, actually, fuck Shifu. And I love that specifically because Shifu was talking about, like, he was all about, like, fucking meritocracy earlier when he's like, "Oh, I got the job on my own," and then oops, suddenly when there's a woman who is better than the job at him, he tries to fucking finagle, like, that. He tries to use his position to keep a woman out of the same position, and I think that's a very fun little stab at his specific thing with, like, meritocracy and earning your position.
Yeah. But Mulan, regardless, says, no, I appreciate that. It's time for me to go home. And the Emperor respects her and, like, gives her the sword and, like, a medal to show that she saved China and also him.
A medal to show her father so he knows what he's done so he knows what she's done for the Emperor, and a sword to know what she's done for China.
Yeah. And she gives him a big ol' hug, which they pointed out is very non-Eastern, but it is very deliberate on their part to show how she is upending tradition. And this turns out to be the right move, because the Emperor looks very kind and, like, appreciative, because he hugs her back.
Yeah.
And then she, like, goes to leave, and Shang is, like, standing right there, and he's basically like,
"Oh yeah,
good job, champ." And she's like,
he says,
cool.
"You fight good." That's what he says.
"Yeah, you fight good." And Mulan's like, "Thanks, bud." And she gets on her horse and rides away.
Yeah, and the Emperor comes up behind Shang and starts to do like a Chinese proverb, like, oh, I forget what he says exactly, but it doesn't matter because Shang's like, oh, what do you mean by that, sir? And the Emperor goes, dumbass, go after her.
Get your fucking
That girl is
idiot.
so fucking cool. Go after her.
Yeah.
You
Mulan
don't
is
meet a
very
girl like that every dynasty. Go. Idiot. Jeez.
Yeah. Mulan returns home and her dad is sitting out in the garden with the cherry blossoms. It's so peaceful and pretty.
Yeah.
And
but also like morose in that, hey, kind of like reestablishing he has no fucking idea that any of the movie has happened.
Oh yeah.
As far as he knows, she could be fucking dead.
Yeah. I also, something I noted is that the fact that the cherry blossoms are still in bloom is possibly anachronistic or anachronistic because it doesn't feel like that much time has passed, and cherry blossoms are like notoriously only last for like I think a week or so at most before they go green. Or it implies that a full fucking year has gone by, which, Jesus Christ, that would be nuts.
Yeah, that could be true.
That could be true.
Because, like, fuck, like, they did all that training. That may have happened in, like, a 2-minute montage, but, like, that doesn't fucking, like, that takes months. And then also, they marched across half the country.
Yeah.
And then back.
Yeah. So
this could have been just a full fucking year.
Yeah. I think it's a cool detail if you know to notice it. Otherwise, it just creates like a beautiful scene, and I think both work for this movie.
Like, oh yeah, this is what this looks like.
Again,
this is what their home looks like.
Yeah, again, emotional realism is really important in movies like this. But
right.
Mulan, like, barely even greeting him, immediately kind of just throws herself down on her knees and is like, here's the sword.
Him.
I honored you. I killed this guy. I saved China. Here was like my thing from the Emperor. And her dad throws aside the sword and just brings her into his arms. And it's a moment that makes me tear up.
I'm like tearing up now thinking about it, because what he says to her is the greatest treasure and honor is having you as a daughter, and fuck.
Dad win.
Fuck.
Dad win.
Dad win.
Dad
like,
win. I
God.
love you,
Yeah. Speaking of wins, speaking of a couple things. One, the mom and the grandma are watching, and the grandma's like, "Oh, that's it? She just brought home a sword and a medal? If you ask me, she should have brought home a man." And who shows up but the man's man himself?
Here he is,
Li Shang.
You cunty bitch.
Like, oh hey. It's like, oh hey, is Mulan here? Touching my two fingers together. I'm here to see Mulan. And they're like, oh, she's in the garden. And the grandma fucking peeps his ass as he walks past and goes, sign me up for the next war, baby.
Yo.
Hamina.
Yeah. And Shang's excuse as to why he's here is, oh, you forgot your helmet. Mulan's like,
to be fair, that is like a family heirloom, but also no, it's very clear that's not what he's here for.
No. Well, it's almost like he is, because Mulan has to be the one who's like, do you want to stay for dinner? To which the grandma replies, do you want to stay forever? Best line in the movie. Grandma is great. I love you.
Just yelling in the distance.
Yeah. And
in the distance, we also see the ancestors very begrudgingly, giving Mushu his job back because, hey, he did do good, and where the fuck is the Great Stone Dragon anyways? I guess it's your win, Mushu. Fuck.
Yeah, and so he gets to go back on his pedestal. Oh goodness, the cricket is now the one ringing the gong. They have a dance party, because why the fuck not? Why wouldn't you end this movie in a dance party? And, the last moment of this movie is, like, Mushu is kind of right outside the shrine, and Mulan comes up and gives him a kiss on his little lizard head.
On his little lizard head.
The end.
And then little brother rushes into the shrine, filling it with chickens and corn again.
As it should be.
We've come full circle. The end.
And...
yeah, God.
One last bit from the commentary track because I think this is very sweet and also important. They talk for basically the entirety of the end credits about how proud they are of this movie and like the work that they did, but specifically how happy they are that they were able to make this movie for young girls, especially.
Yeah.
I forget which director it was, but one of them talked about how he has a young daughter and he wanted, like, he was proud that he was able to make this movie for her. And I think that is so fucking lovely and beautiful, and I am glad that this movie exists. It is so important to so many people for, like, very good reason.
Yeah. That's an interesting through line it has with Spirited Away, now that I'm thinking about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. God, what a great film.
What a great film. I'm glad we covered it. All right. We have at last reached we have at last reached the end of Mulan. It is time for the Dragon Scale.
Right. It's time for our numerical, quantifiable, and entirely arbitrary rating system in which we rate the dragons in this movie. And, like, obviously we've got a bit of a problem here, right?
Yeah.
We really have, like, basically nothing to work with the Great Stone Dragon. And
truly,
I'm actually going to bring up a fan theory here that I think is interesting to do with the Great Stone Dragon, even though I don't think it entirely solves our problem. So there's an interesting fan theory that posits that the Great Stone Dragon is actually Mulan, in that it's like, in that, because it's not a guardian spirit for Mulan specifically. None of these guardian spirits are guardians for Mulan. They're guardians for the Fa family. And Mulan is taking on that role. And there's a lot of, when you look at her, like, suiting up in the armor, there is a lot of dragon iconography. There's a dragon in her sword. There's, like, a dragon, like, image on the wall. There's, like, that cut when she leaves, you see, like, the Great Stone Dragon and its eyes light up as she goes out. And there's like fans who theorize, oh, this is representing that the dragon spirit, the guardian spirit, is now embodied in her. But I don't think we can rate Mulan as a dragon.
No.
Like, it doesn't, as cool as she is, it doesn't really work. So I have a proposed solution that I'm gonna pitch to you.
Okay.
So we were gonna have to confront this anyways with some of the movies we had planned that we want to watch. Dragon is it's a fantasy creature, so, the definition can be kind of nebulous, and, there's a lot of ways to, point at something and say, that's kind of a dragon, right?
Yeah.
And we've got this reptilian creature that's, like, mystical, is in the movie for most of it, breathes fire at one point, and even though he's not a dragon proper, do you want to just give Mushu the spot here and rate him? Because I think we have enough material to work with there, at least.
Yeah, I think that might be how we have to play our cards.
Yeah, I'd say, you know what, Mushu? You're dragon enough.
You're dragon enough.
Yeah, and to represent that, we're going to go right in for taxonomy. I think we could give Mushu a 10 out of 10 for dragon taxonomy.
I think we might have to, Heather, because there is something that we have been neglecting this entire episode, and it is to say,
what's that?
April Fools.
Oh fuck! That's right, motherfuckers.
Yeah,
I bet you thought we were stupid.
Yeah, we're a week late, and that was on purpose. You'll live. We don't
know how late we are, but yeah, we do have to come clean on another matter. Hey, other April Fool prank. Oops, we didn't release this on Tuesday.
Hey,
that's fine.
Hey, I've been super fucking sick and depressed, and you know what? It was worth it to give ourselves a break. It's all good. I'm doing fine now.
It's all good.
Yeah.
And we fucking got you, actually.
We for sure got you. I also bring this up now for taxonomy because my mental illness is catching, and they do actually directly call Mushu a dragon in the movie.
Whatever do you mean? Whatever do you mean? Genuinely, actually, what do you mean? Who calls him a dragon?
I forget what it happens, but
Other than himself.
It does get deadass. I think one of the ancestors drops it where they're like, "Oh, you stupid dragon." It happens. I don't remember when. And honestly, someone might come back and say, like, "No, that didn't actually happen. You're making things up." And you know what? I might be.
Well, you know what? If they are making things up, April Fools.
April Fools.
We got you again, idiot, for commenting that.
You fell for it.
Nice try.
You fell for it. Get on my level.
You're caught in our trap. Okay, well,
elegance.
Right, but taxonomy, Mushu's a 10 out of 10. He's literally a dragon. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about this. No more April Fooling about.
Yeah.
Elegance.
He's not elegant. Really?
He's not elegant. He's kind of crass. He's kind of rude. He's a bit of a fucking freak, and he talks about how he likes the smell of stinky feet.
He's also a bit of a gremlin character.
Yeah, I agree.
I do like his sinuous body, but it's like he feels less like a cool snake you see slithering around and more like a little creep.
Yeah.
I would give him a 2 on the elegance, honestly.
Really? I was gonna say 4, so do you want to split the difference and say 3?
I'm comfortable with either a 3 or a 4.
Okay. Terror. Mushu is not scary.
He's got his one introduction scene where he freaks people out, and also he bit Ling on the ass, and I think that's kind of terrifying.
Yeah. He did scare the shit out of Ling and everyone by they just thought he was a snake. So I'm gonna say maybe 3 or 4 on this one too.
I'd give him a 4 because I think he's scary in the way that like a lot of like poisonous creatures are perhaps scary if you don't know any better.
Yeah, all right. You know what? Fair enough. Prominence. I think this is like a 10 out of 10.
I would agree.
He's very prominent in this movie.
No, he like especially given his role in the movie and their intentions with him to have an effect on the film, I would agree. 10 out of 10 prominence. Yeah. He changes the plot.
He does change the plot. I'm going to also say effectiveness 10 out of 10.
Agreed.
Like, he earns that fucking pedestal.
Yeah.
He did his fucking job. His decisions, one, we didn't mention this earlier. No, he also directly saved China by faking that letter from the general because, hey, I bet that's what they would have sent if they weren't all fucking dead.
Yeah. And the Hun would have just come straight through the pass and fucking killed the Emperor. Like...
Yeah, fucking look what Sean you accomplished with just him and 4 other dudes.
Yeah.
Boys rock. Dudes rock.
Alright.
Yeah, but plugging that into the score, do we want to give Mushu a bonus?
Not really. Because the score right now, not to spoil anything, but it's the score that he's at right now is so comfortable for me. Like, this just feels right for him, you know?
Okay.
If you want to give him... I was
gonna maybe float him half a point for being funny.
Okay. That's fair.
Yeah, half a point for being funny. And I'm gonna say that brings our score to 8.55.
Wow.
For the final rating of Mushu from Mulan. And we're going to plug that into our wonderful Dragon Raider. And we're going to see how this goes.
All right.
And that puts Mushu in a comfortable 3rd place, just behind Aragon and just ahead of Pete's Dragon.
Yeah. That feels right. You know?
Feels right and proper.
This feels right.
I forgot Elliot was rated so high.
You did give him a full bonus point because...
Oh yeah, for being a good sport. Right. Well, you know what? I stand by my decision, actually.
Yeah. All right.
And yeah, before we depart, some final administrative things. So, whatever. Jeez, I sound like a fucking corporate stooge. Some announcements for the podcast. Because y'all were such good sports listening to the end through our hilarious bit where we pretend not to know what the fuck's going on in a movie for several hours, I'm gonna give y'all a sneak peek at our proper episode for April, coming not next Tuesday, but the Tuesday after.
No, it's gonna be next Tuesday, because we missed a week.
No, because whenever this ends up being released, the next episode is going to come out the 14th.
Tuesday the 15th.
Oh, Tuesday the 15th. Sorry. I'm under a sheet. I can't see my entire screen to check these dates.
It's all good.
Tuesday the 15th. We're going to be releasing our next episode, our proper episode for April. And to give you a bit of a sneak preview on this, we're not doing China like we were with Mulan. We're going to be going to Japan.
Going back to Japan.
And it's going to be and it's going to be from another popular animated franchise. Very, very famous one. Very, very famous one. Here's a hint. Has dragon in the title. Maybe involves spherical objects. But we're going to talk about something that I'm sure some of you are going to be very excited about. Yes. So get ready for that. And we will spot you next time. And I've been Heather.
I've been Diana, and we'll continue to be.
Yeah, and you've all been April Fools.
You've all been April Fools.
And we'll spot you later.
We'll spot you later. Bye!
Bye.